In this video, we'll be breaking down 2 hours of the darkest Naruto lore to fall asleep to. Let's get started. First up we have the downfall of the Uchiha clan and the night Itachi slaughtered his own family. The Uchiha clan was one of the founding families of the Hidden Leaf Village. They helped create Konoha alongside their rivals, the Senju clan. For years, the two clans had fought each other in brutal wars, but eventually, they put their differences aside and built a village where ninja could live in peace. This peace would not last forever. The Uchiha possessed a special power called the Sharingan. This eye ability made them incredibly strong fighters. The Sharingan could copy techniques, see through illusions, and even control powerful beasts. This power made other people in the village both respect and fear the Uchiha clan. Everything changed on October 10th, 12 years before the main story begins. That night, a masked man attacked the village using the nine-tailed fox. The Ninetales was the most powerful of all the tailed beasts. It destroyed large parts of Konoha and killed many people. The fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, gave his life to seal the Ninetales inside his newborn son, Naruto. The village leadership knew that someone with a Sharingan had controlled the Ninetales during the attack. Only the Sharingan possessed the power to control such a powerful creature. Because of this, Konoha's leaders began to suspect the Uchiha clan was responsible for the attack. During the Ninetales attack, the Uchiha clan wanted to help defend the village. Fugaku Uchiha, the clan leader and father of Itachi and Sasuke, made plans for the police force to join the fight. The Uchiha ran Konoha's police force, but before they could help, village leaders ordered them to stay back and protect civilians instead. They were told not to engage the Ninetales at all. This order made the Uchiha feel distrusted. If the village really believed in them, why would they be kept away from the fight? The suspicion became clear. The village leadership thought an Uchiha was behind the attack. After all, if the Sharingan could be used to stop the Ninetales, it could also be used to cause the attack in the first place. After the Ninetales attack, things got worse for the Uchiha. The village leadership forced the entire clan to move to the outskirts of the village. They said this was necessary for Konoha's reconstruction. But the real reason was different. The Konoha Council believed the Uchiha's attack on the village would not stop with the Ninetales. They wanted all the Uchiha in one place so they could watch them closely. They wanted to prevent any future attacks. Fugaku protested this decision. He knew what it really meant. The new location was far from the village center. It could be easily watched from multiple points. The Uchiha police force headquarters had been damaged in the Ninetales attack. Now that too was being moved to the outskirts. The message was clear. The village did not trust the Uchiha clan. For years, the Uchiha had served the village loyally. They had helped found Konoha. They had fought in wars to protect it. Many Uchiha had died for the village. Now they were being treated like criminals. This treatment convinced many Uchiha that they would never be accepted. The anger and resentment grew stronger with each passing day. Under Fugaku's leadership, the Uchiha began secretly planning a coup. They wanted to overthrow the third Hokage and his administration. They wanted to take control of the village by force. The Uchiha placed some of their members in the Anbu, Konoha's elite assassination and tactical squad. These Anbu members would spy on the village and report back to the clan. They would find weaknesses in Konoha's defenses. They would learn when the village was most vulnerable to attack. One of these Anbu members was Itachi Uchiha. Itachi was Fugaku's oldest son. He was considered a prodigy. Itachi had graduated from the Ninja Academy at age 6. He became a Chunin at age 10. By age 13, he was an Anbu captain. Everyone in the clan was proud of Itachi. Fugaku especially wanted Itachi to rise through the Anbu ranks. This would give the Uchiha valuable information for their coup. But Itachi did not share his clan's goals. Itachi had witnessed the horrors of war when he was just 4 years old. He had seen the Third Shinobi World War. The death and violence had affected him deeply. Itachi became a pacifist at heart. He did not want more bloodshed. He believed strongly in peace, even if that peace required difficult choices. Itachi understood what a coup would mean. If the Uchiha attacked Konoha's leadership, it would start a civil war inside the village. The village would be weakened by fighting itself. Other nations would see this weakness. They would attack Konoha while it was divided. The civil war would expand into another great ninja war. Millions would die. Itachi could not let this happen. So Itachi became a double agent. He reported the Uchiha's plans directly to Konoha's leadership. He provided information on the coup to the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. The third Hokage did not agree with how the Uchiha had been treated after the Nine Tails attack. He wanted to find a peaceful solution. He tried to negotiate with the clan, but others in Konoha's leadership were not interested in peace talks. Danzo Shimura was one of these leaders. Danzo ran a secret organization called Root. He believed the Uchiha could not be trusted. He believed negotiations would fail. Danzo thought eliminating all the Uchiha would cause less bloodshed than allowing a coup. For years, Danzo had been working behind the scenes. He spread rumors that the Uchiha were responsible for the Nine Tails attack. He was the one who ordered the Uchiha relocated to the village outskirts. He wanted to increase the hatred between the village and the Uchiha clan. Danzo saw an opportunity. If he could get an Uchiha to kill their own clan, it would look like one person went crazy. It would not look like the village had ordered a massacre. Other clans would not fear they were next. The Uchiha clan noticed Itachi's strange behavior. They suspected he might be a spy. They asked Shisui Uchiha to watch Itachi closely. Shisui was Itachi's best friend. He was also a descendant of Kagami Uchiha, a legendary Uchiha who had served under the second Hokage. Like Itachi, Shisui opposed the coup. He believed in protecting the village, even over the clan. Shisui had awakened a special form of the Sharingan called the Mangekyo Sharingan. His Mangekyo had a unique ability called Kodowa Matsukami. This technique could control someone's mind without them knowing. It would plant thoughts in their head and make them believe these thoughts were their own. The person would never realize they had been manipulated. Shisui planned to use Kodowa Matsukami on Fugaku and other Uchiha leaders. He would make them abandon the coup peacefully. But Danzo knew about Shisui's plan. Danzo did not trust that Shisui would not eventually use Kodowa Matsukami against the village. He also believed manipulating just the leaders would not work. The desire for a coup went beyond just Fugaku. Many young, radical Uchiha wanted the coup to happen. They were led by members like Yashiro Uchiha. Simply controlling Fugaku would not stop them all. So Danzo ambushed Shisui. He stole Shisui's right eye. Shisui escaped, but he knew he had failed. He feared Danzo would come for his other eye too. Shisui met with Itachi one final time. He gave Itachi his remaining left eye. He asked Itachi to protect the village and the Uchiha clan's honor. Then Shisui threw himself off a cliff into the Naka River. He wrote a suicide note saying he could not follow through with the coup. He erased his own existence, leaving no body behind. The Uchiha found Shisui's suicide note. They believed Itachi had murdered Shisui and staged the suicide. They no longer trusted Itachi at all. Itachi himself was devastated. Watching his best friend die awakened Itachi's own Mangekyo Sharingan. But it also convinced Itachi that a peaceful solution was no longer possible. Danzo approached Itachi with an ultimatum. He explained two possibilities. The Uchiha could be allowed to carry out their coup. This would lead to civil war. The village would win, but all the Uchiha would be killed anyway, including Itachi and his younger brother Sasuke. Or Itachi could kill the Uchiha clan himself before the coup happened. If Itachi chose this path, Danzo promised to spare Sasuke's life. Sasuke could survive and live in the village safely. Itachi loved his younger brother more than anything. Sasuke looked up to Itachi. Sasuke wanted to be strong like his older brother. Itachi could not let Sasuke die. He made his choice. He would bear the burden of killing his entire family to save his brother's life. Before carrying out the massacre, Itachi encountered a mysterious masked man. This man claimed to be Madara Uchiha, the legendary Uchiha who had fought the first Hokage decades earlier. Itachi offered this man a deal. If the masked man would help Itachi destroy the Uchiha clan, Itachi would spare the village from attack. The masked man agreed. He had his own reasons for wanting the Uchiha destroyed. In reality, this masked man was not Madara. He was Obito Uchiha, a former Konoha ninja who everyone believed had died years earlier. The massacre happened in a single night. In the anime version, Obito attacked the Konoha military police force headquarters. He killed the military portion of the Uchiha clan there. This allowed Itachi to kill the civilian Uchiha in the compound without much resistance. Obito also secretly took some Uchiha corpses for his own purposes. Itachi moved through the Uchiha compound. He killed his clan members one by one. Some he gave quick, merciful deaths. Others, especially those who had pushed hardest for the coup, he made suffer. Itachi saved his family home for last. He expected his father, Fugaku, to be his greatest challenge. Fugaku was the clan leader. He possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan. Though he kept this secret from everyone, Fugaku could have put up a serious fight. Itachi entered his home with great caution. He was prepared for battle, but what happened next would haunt Itachi for the rest of his life. His parents were waiting for him. They were not in fighting stances. They were sitting calmly with their backs turned. Fugaku and Mikoto had realized what was happening. They understood their son's impossible choice. Fugaku spoke first. He told Itachi that he understood. Itachi had chosen the village over the clan. Fugaku respected this decision. He said he was proud of Itachi for staying true to his convictions. Mikoto agreed. Both parents accepted their fate. They would not fight their own son. They had only one request. They asked Itachi to take care of Sasuke. They asked him to protect their youngest son. Itachi was trembling. Tears streamed down his face. He had to kill his own parents. His parents who loved him. His parents who were proud of him even now. His parents who would not defend themselves. Itachi raised his sword. He killed Fugaku and Mikoto just before Sasuke would return home from the ninja academy. Sasuke had been at academy training that day. He was 7 years old. As he walked home, Sasuke felt like someone was watching him. He shrugged off the feeling. When Sasuke reached the Uchiha compound, he saw something that would change his life forever. Bodies were everywhere. Dead Uchiha lay in the streets. Blood covered the ground. Sasuke was confused and terrified. He ran toward his house to tell his family. To get help, Sasuke burst into his home. He found Itachi standing over the bodies of their parents. Fugaku and Mikoto lay dead in pools of blood. Sasuke could not understand what he was seeing. He turned to Itachi for comfort, for an explanation, for his big brother to fix this nightmare. Instead, Itachi attacked him. Itachi threw a shuriken that cut Sasuke's shoulder. Then Itachi activated his tsukuyomi technique. This was a special genjutsu from the Mangekyo Sharingan. Tsukuyomi trapped the victim in an illusion world where Itachi controlled everything, including time. In this illusion world, Sasuke was forced to watch his entire clan being murdered over and over again. He watched Itachi kill them all. Each death played out in horrifying detail. Time moved differently inside Tsukuyomi. Seconds in the real world felt like days inside the illusion. When the Tsukuyomi ended, Sasuke was traumatized beyond words. He asked Itachi why. Why had he done this? Itachi replied coldly. He said he did it to test his power, to see how strong he had become. Itachi told Sasuke that he was not even worth killing. Sasuke was too weak. Sasuke was pathetic. Only by becoming much stronger could Sasuke hope to challenge Itachi. Only by awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan could Sasuke be worth Itachi's time. Itachi told Sasuke to hate him, to live for revenge, to dedicate his entire life to becoming strong enough to kill Itachi someday. This was the only way Sasuke could avenge their clan. Sasuke tried to run away in terror. Itachi stopped him and repeated his message. Sasuke had to survive, had to get stronger, had to hate. As Itachi turned to leave, something unexpected happened. Sasuke was filled with rage. For the first time in his life, his Sharingan awakened. Sasuke chased after Itachi. He attacked his brother. Sasuke actually managed to knock off Itachi's forehead protector. For just a moment, Itachi's mask slipped. He saw his baby brother trying to fight him. Tears fell from Itachi's eyes, but he maintained his cold expression. He picked up his forehead protector and left. Sasuke collapsed from the trauma. He passed out in the street. When he woke up days later in the hospital, he had blocked out the memory of fighting back. His mind had protected him from that moment. For years, Sasuke would not remember that he had awakened his Sharingan that night and attacked Itachi. Only 3 Uchiha survived the massacre: Itachi, Sasuke, and Obito. The world believed Itachi had acted alone. Most people, including Sasuke, did not know about Obito's involvement. They did not even know Obito was still alive. Itachi reported to the 3rd Hokage that the mission was complete. The 3rd Hokage had not known about Danzo's ultimatum. He regretted what had happened, but there was nothing to be done now. The 3rd Hokage promised to tell everyone that Itachi had acted alone and without reason. This would protect Konoha from blame. It would also prevent other nations from learning about the Uchiha's coup plans. Most importantly, the 3rd Hokage vowed to protect Sasuke from Danzo. Itachi also threatened Danzo directly. He warned that if Danzo or anyone else harmed Sasuke, Itachi would reveal all of Konoha's secrets to enemy nations. This threat kept Sasuke safe for years. After the massacre, Itachi left Konoha. He joined a criminal organization called the Akatsuki. This made him look like a true villain to the world. But secretly, Itachi used his position to spy on the Akatsuki from inside. He reported their activities back to Konoha. He prevented the Akatsuki from attacking the village. Itachi protected Konoha and Sasuke from the shadows. Sasuke spent the days after the massacre wandering the empty Uchiha compound. He walked past the places where his relatives had lived. Everyone was gone now, killed by Itachi. Sasuke made a decision. He would do exactly what Itachi told him to do. He would dedicate his entire life to vengeance. He would become strong enough to kill Itachi. Nothing else mattered. The massacre became one of the darkest moments in Konoha's history. For years, everyone believed Itachi was a heartless murderer who killed his family for power. Only a few people knew the truth. The truth would eventually come out, but not for many years. Sasuke would learn what really happened only after killing Itachi in battle. By then, it would be too late to take back all the hatred, all the pain, all the years spent seeking revenge against a brother who had loved him more than anything else in the world. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have the child soldiers raised by the hidden villages and the ninja academies that deliberately trained children for warfare. The hidden villages of the ninja world created a system that turned children into soldiers. This system was not hidden or controversial within their society. It was standard. It was expected. It was how things worked. Children as young as 4 years old could enroll in ninja academies. By the time they were 12, many would graduate and become active soldiers who could be sent on missions. Some would die before they turned 13. The academy system in Konoha and other villages trained children for combat from a very young age. Students typically enrolled around age 6 to 8. The standard curriculum lasted about 4 years. Children learned reading, writing, and basic academics, alongside weapon training, combat techniques, and how to kill. By age 12, most students would graduate and become genin, the lowest rank of ninja. But this was just the standard path. Prodigies could graduate much younger. Kakashi Hatake graduated from the academy at age 5. He had enrolled at age 4. In just 1 year, he completed what normally took other students 4 to 6 years to learn. His teachers unanimously agreed he was ready for combat at age 5. They recognized him as a prodigy. They gave him the rank of genin and sent him into the field. At age 6, Kakashi took the Chunin exams. He passed. He became a squad leader at age 6. By age 12, Kakashi had achieved the rank of Jonin, one of the highest ninja ranks. By age 13, he was fighting in a brutal war. These were not exceptions made in desperate times. This was the system working as designed. The legendary Sannin all graduated together at age 6. Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Orochimaru completed the academy when they were only 6 years old. They were formed into a team under the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi. By the time they were teenagers, they had fought in the Second Shinobi World War. They survived an encounter with Hanzo the Salamander, one of the most dangerous ninja alive. This battle earned them their legendary title. But they were still children when they were sent to war. Itachi Uchiha enrolled in the academy at age 6. He graduated after just 4 months. His teachers agreed he was already at genin level, despite being younger than 7 years old. Itachi became a chunin at age 10. He joined the Onbu, the elite black operations unit, at age 11. By age 12, Itachi had become an Onbu captain. He commanded adult ninja on secret missions. He killed people, many people. All of this happened before Itachi turned 13. Shisui Uchiha was another child prodigy. He graduated from the academy as a young boy. By age 8, he was already serving as a genin. Around age 11, Shisui had achieved the rank of jonin. He was leading missions and commanding other ninja before he hit puberty. Shisui died at a young age, his body found in the Naka River. He had been targeted because his eyes held too much power. Asuma Sarutobi, son of the third Hokage, graduated at age 9. He became a chunin at age 12. These ages were considered normal for talented students. Nobody questioned whether 9-year-olds should be trained to fight and kill. The system had been running this way for generations. The Third Shinobi World War revealed the darkest truth about this system. The war happened more than 10 years before the main Naruto story begins. It started because the 5 great shinobi countries were losing their power. Small conflicts along borders spread. These skirmishes grew into a massive war that pulled in nearly every ninja village. The conflict became what was described as an unprecedented war of attrition. Villages ran out of adult soldiers. They needed more fighters to fill the ranks. So they sent children. The war turned into such a brutal conflict that even great powers like Konoha started sending very young children to the battlefield. Children who had barely graduated from the academy were thrown into combat. Many of these children were not even teenagers yet. They lacked experience, they lacked proper training, in many cases. But villages were desperate for soldiers. The young genin were sent to fight adult warriors with years of battle experience. Many of these children lost their lives. An entire generation of future ninja was sacrificed. The war claimed not just seasoned warriors, but countless young people who never got the chance to grow up. Itachi Uchiha was 4 years old when the Third Shinobi World War was happening. He was not fighting in it at that age, but he witnessed it. He saw the casualties firsthand. He saw the bodies. He saw the death and destruction caused by the conflict. For a 4-year-old child, this experience was traumatic. The violence Itachi witnessed shaped him permanently. It made him hate conflict. It made him want peace at any cost. This childhood trauma would later drive his decisions as a teenager, including his choice to massacre his own clan to prevent another war. Kakashi fought in the Third Shinobi World War. He was already a jonin by the time the war was in full swing. Kakashi was approximately 13 years old during his famous mission where his teammate Obito Uchiha died. On this mission, Kakashi was leading a team that included Obito and Rin Nohara. They were attacked by enemy ninja. Obito, who was also 13, was crushed by falling rocks. Before he died, Obito gave Kakashi his newly awakened Sharingan eye as a gift for Kakashi's Jonin promotion. Kakashi had his eye replaced right there on the battlefield. He was 13 years old. Rin Nohara died during this same war. She was kidnapped by ninja from the Hidden Mist village. They sealed the Three Tails beast inside her body. Their plan was to have Rin return to Konoha, where the beast would be unleashed and destroy the village. Rin realized what had been done to her. She begged Kakashi to kill her before the beast could be released. Kakashi refused, but during a battle, Rin deliberately ran into Kakashi's attack. She killed herself using his jutsu. Kakashi was forced to watch his teammate die by his own technique. He was still just 13. This death traumatized both Kakashi and Obito so severely that they both awakened the Mangekyo Sharingan, an advanced form of their eye power that only appeared after experiencing extreme emotional pain. The war killed Tsukuyomi Hatake, Kakashi's father. Tsukuyomi was a legendary ninja known as the White Fang of the Leaf. He had saved Konoha multiple times. During the war, Tsukuyomi failed a critical mission. He had chosen to save his teammates instead of completing the objective. The village turned on him. His teammates blamed him. The villagers shamed him. Tsukuyomi fell into disgrace. Eventually, the pressure became too much. Tsukuyomi killed himself. Kakashi found his father's body when he was just a young child. This loss shaped how Kakashi approached missions for years. He became cold and focused only on completing objectives, believing his father's choice to prioritize teammates had been wrong. The war affected many other young people. Obito Uchiha survived his supposed death. He had been rescued by Madara Uchiha, but watching Rin die broke something in Obito. He had loved her. Seeing Kakashi's jutsu pierce through Rin's chest, even though it was orchestrated by their enemies and Rin's own choice, shattered Obito's worldview. This trauma would eventually lead Obito to become one of the main antagonists of the entire series. He would start the Fourth Shinobi World War years later. All of this traced back to events that happened when he was 13. The war saw the rise of many young warriors who earned fame through killing. Sasori of the Red Sand earned his title during the Third Shinobi World War. His ingenious puppets dyed the sand red with enemy blood. Ao from the Hidden Mist village killed a member of the Hyuga clan and stole their Byakugan eye. These young ninja were celebrated for their ability to kill efficiently. After the Third Shinobi World War ended, the villages did not change their academy system. Children continued to enroll at young ages. They continued to graduate around age 12. The next generation included Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, and Sakura Haruno. They graduated at age 12. Just like most students, they were immediately put on a team and sent on missions. Their first mission outside the village happened within months of graduation. By age 13, they were fighting in the Chunin exams, a brutal tournament where genin from different villages fought each other. During these exams, some participants died. This was considered acceptable. The academy curriculum prepared children for this reality. Students learned the basic 3 jutsu that all ninja needed to know. They learned transformation techniques that allowed them to disguise themselves. They learned replacement techniques that allowed them to swap places with objects to avoid attacks. They learned clone techniques to create copies of themselves for distraction or combat. They learned how to throw weapons accurately. They practiced taijutsu, hand-to-hand combat designed to hurt and kill. They learned about chakra, the energy that powered all their techniques. But the academy also taught children that sacrifice was expected, that dying for the village was honorable, that their lives belonged to the Hokage and could be spent on any mission. Young children absorbed these lessons. By the time they graduated, they accepted that their purpose was to fight and potentially die for their village. The villages justified this system in different ways. Ninja clans had been training their children for generations. The Uchiha clan, the Hyuga clan, the Nara clan, and others all had family traditions of starting training young. When the hidden villages formed, they simply formalized what clans had already been doing. They created academies that taught all children the same basic skills. This way, even children from civilian families could become ninja. Some children had no choice. Orphans from wars had no parents to protect them or provide for them. The village supported orphans in exchange for their eventual service as ninja. For many orphans, becoming a ninja was their only path forward. The village fed them, housed them, and trained them. In return, these children would fight for the village when they were old enough. Except they were never really old enough. 12-year-olds were still children, but the system treated them as soldiers. Kakashi later became a teacher for Team 7. When Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura graduated at age 12, Kakashi was assigned as their Jonin instructor. He gave them a test to see if they had what it took to be real ninja. Most teams failed this test and were sent back to the academy. Kakashi's test checked whether students understood teamwork, but it also showed them the reality of being a ninja. Kakashi made it clear that ninja missions could result in death, that they would have to kill enemies, that their names might end up carved on the memorial stone with all the other dead ninja from Konoha. The memorial stone in Konoha listed the names of every ninja who died in service to the village. The stone had thousands of names carved into it. Many of those names belonged to people who died young, children who graduated and died on their first few missions, teenagers who fell in the various wars, young ninja killed by enemies before they turned 20. Kakashi visited this stone regularly, so did many others. The stone was a constant reminder of the cost of the ninja system. Villages continued sending children to war because they had no alternative. After major conflicts, adult ninja populations would be drastically reduced. The village needed to rebuild its military quickly. The only way to do that was to train the next generation as fast as possible. This created a cycle. Wars killed adult ninja. Villages rushed to train replacement soldiers. Many of these replacements were too young and died in the next conflict. Then the cycle repeated. Some people within the villages questioned this system. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, eventually believed that individuals with kind hearts did not belong in the Anbu. He had seen what the brutal missions did to young ninja like Itachi and Kakashi, but Hiruzen never changed the academy system itself. Children still graduated at 12. They were still sent on missions that could kill them. The fundamental structure remained the same. The villages claimed that ninja were different from regular people, that ninja children matured faster, that they understood the risks and chose this life willingly. But how much choice did a 6-year-old really have? How much could a 12-year-old truly understand about death and war? The villages taught children that being a ninja was honorable, that sacrifice was noble, that dying for your comrades was the highest achievement. Children who grew up hearing these messages naturally accepted them as truth. By the time Boruto's generation came along, the villages were at peace. The Fourth Shinobi World War had ended. The major villages had formed alliances. There were fewer conflicts, but the academy system continued. Children still enrolled around the same ages. They still graduated around age 12. The only difference was that these graduates faced fewer immediate threats. They went on missions that were usually less dangerous. But the system itself had not fundamentally changed. The villages still trained children to be soldiers, even in peacetime, because they believed that being ready for war was the only way to maintain peace. The darkest aspect of this system was how normalized it became. Nobody within the ninja world questioned whether 12-year-olds should be sent on life-threatening missions. Parents enrolled their children in the academy, knowing the risks. Civilians in the villages accepted that some of their children would become ninja and might die young. The system had existed for so long that everyone accepted it as the natural order of things. children became soldiers. Some soldiers died. This was just how the world worked. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to the caged bird seal, we enter the Hyuga clan's system of control, where branch house members live under enforced obedience and the threat of having their very eyes sealed by the main house. The caged bird seal and the Hyuga branch family life of bondage and control. The Hyuga clan stands as one of the 4 noble clans of Konohagakure and one of the oldest shinobi families in the entire world. They possess the Byakugan, one of the 3 great dojutsu, a Kekkei Genkai that grants them extended fields of vision, the ability to see through solid objects, and the power to see the chakra circulatory system inside the human body. This power makes them incredibly valuable to any village and incredibly dangerous to their enemies. But the Hyuga clan guards their bloodline with a system so brutal, so controlling, and so permanent that it turns family members into slaves from the moment they are children. This is the story of the caged bird seal and the branch family members who lived and died wearing a torture device on their foreheads. The Hyuga clan divides itself into 2 houses. The main house leads the family and controls all decisions. The branch house exists for one purpose, only to serve and protect the main house. Every member of the branch house receives a cursed seal placed directly on their forehead. The seal serves 2 functions. First, it destroys the Byakugan completely upon the death of the branch member, sealing away the secrets of the Kekkei Genkai so enemies cannot study it. Second, and far more sinister, the seal gives main house members absolute control over branch members through a special hand seal that only they know. When activated, the seal attacks the chakra pathways inside the brain, destroying brain cells and causing excruciating pain. If the pain is severe enough, it can kill the branch member outright. The timing of when children receive this seal is particularly cruel. Branch family members are branded on the 3rd birthday of the main house's next heir or heiress, regardless of the branch member's own age. Neji Hyuga received his cursed seal when he was only 4 years old, on his cousin Hinata's 3rd birthday. The seal is placed on the forehead, which is why branch members wear their forehead protectors over it to hide the mark of their servitude. Once placed, the seal can never be removed, except through death. Death is literally the only way a branch member can be free from the seal. Neji himself recognized this, calling himself a caged bird, believing that dying would be the only escape from his fate. The system that created this division goes back generations. The main house consists of the direct line of succession, the clan head and their immediate family. Everyone else becomes part of the branch house. Even being born into the main house offers no guarantee of staying there. The most tragic example is Hisashi Hyuga, Neji's father. Hisashi was born as the twin brother of Hiyashi Hyuga, who would become the clan head, but because Hisashi was born just seconds after his twin, he was immediately relegated to the branch house. Despite being identical twins, despite having equal talent and ability, despite being the son of the previous clan head, Hisashi received the cursed seal and spent his entire life in servitude to his own brother. This decision was made specifically because the 2 were twins. The elders feared that having 2 identical members in the main house would create confusion about the line of succession. Hisashi was a talented jonin, skilled in the gentle fist fighting style that the Hyuga clan pioneered. He married and had a son named Neji. As Neji grew, his natural genius with the Byakugan and Hyuga techniques became obvious to everyone, including his father. Hisashi watched his son demonstrate talent that surpassed many main house members. He watched Neji master techniques quickly and show potential to become one of the strongest Hyuga of his generation. And Hisashi knew that none of it mattered. Neji would receive the cursed seal. Neji would be denied access to the advanced techniques that only the main house could learn. Neji would spend his entire life serving people less talented than himself, simply because of the circumstances of his birth. This knowledge filled Hisashi with resentment toward the main house. His anger grew stronger as Neji grew older. At the same time, Hinata, the heir to the main house and Neji's cousin, was proving to be ill-suited as the next clan leader. She was kind and gentle but lacked the aggressive nature that the clan valued. The contrast between his talented son and the struggling heiress made Hisashi's bitterness manifest in dangerous ways. His anger became so strong that it showed as killing intent, a murderous aura that shinobi could sense. This killing intent was directed at Hinata, the toddler who represented everything wrong with the system. Hiyashi, as head of the clan and a main house member, could sense his brother's killing intent. In response, Hayashi activated Hisashi's cursed seal. The seal sent waves of pain through Hisashi's brain, attacking his chakra pathways and destroying brain cells. Hisashi collapsed in agony in front of his young son. Neji, only 4 years old, watched his father writhe in pain, helpless to stop it. This moment traumatized Neji and gave him his first reason to doubt and fear the main house. His father had done nothing except feel anger that Neji himself would later understand completely, and for that thought crime, Hisashi was tortured by his own brother using the seal that marked him as property. Shortly after this incident, an event occurred that would change the Hyuga clan forever. The event became known as the Hyuga Affair. A head ninja from Kumogakure, the village hidden in the clouds, visited Konoha during a time of peace treaty negotiations. But this was not a diplomatic mission. The head ninja took advantage of the peace treaty to sneak into the Hyuga compound and attempt to kidnap 3-year-old Hinata. His goal was to take her back to Kumogakure, where they could study the secrets of the Byakugan. The Cloud Village had been trying to steal the Byakugan for years, and this was their latest attempt. Hayashi discovered the kidnapping in progress. He confronted the head ninja and killed him to save his daughter. This should have been the end of the incident. A foreign ninja caught attempting to kidnap a child was killed in self-defense. But Kumogakure denied that their ninja had tried to kidnap anyone. Instead, they claimed that Hiyashi had murdered their head ninja without provocation, and that this was effectively a declaration of war by Konoha. Kumogakure issued an ultimatum: hand over Hiyashi's body as restitution, or face war. The demand for Hiyashi's body was not about justice. Kumogakure wanted the Byakugan. If they received Hayashi's corpse, they would finally have what they had been seeking for years, a chance to study and potentially replicate the Hyuga clan's Kekkei Genkai. Konoha's leadership understood this, but they also understood that the village was not ready for another war. The Third Shinobi World War had ended only recently, and Konoha had lost many ninja. The Nine-Tails attack had occurred just a few years earlier, killing the 4th Hokage and devastating the village. Konoha could not afford another conflict. Hayashi, as clan head, was willing to sacrifice himself to protect the village and prevent war. But the Hyuga elders and Konoha's leadership saw a different solution. Hisashi, as Hiyashi's identical twin, could serve as a body double. Because Hisashi bore the caged bird seal, his Byakugan would be destroyed the moment he died. Kumogakure would receive what they believed to be Hayashi's body, but they would gain nothing from it. The seal would protect the clan's secrets even in death. The leadership approached Hisashi with this plan. They were essentially asking him to die in his brother's place. Initially, Hayashi refused to allow it, trying to find another way to resolve the situation peacefully. But Hisashi made his choice. In a moment that showed both his bitterness and his nobility, Hisashi disabled his brother with a single blow and volunteered himself. He explained that he was not doing this to preserve the Hyuga structure or to serve the main house as the system demanded. He was doing it to save his brother's life, to prevent war, to protect the village, and for the first time in his entire life, to choose his own fate. Before he went to his death, Hisashi spoke to Hayashi privately. He admitted that he regretted showing Neji only his bitterness in life. He had exposed his son to his anger and resentment toward the main house, and now Neji would grow up with those feelings, but without understanding the full truth. Hisashi asked Hiyashi to tell Neji why he made this choice, not because the cursed seal forced him, but because he chose it freely. Then Hisashi left to face Kumogakure's representatives. His body was handed over to the Cloud Village, covered in a blanket. The cursed seal activated upon his death, destroying his Byakugan completely and vanishing from his body. Kumogakure discovered they had been deceived, but the damage was done. Konoha had technically fulfilled their demand. War was avoided, but the cost was Hisashi's life. Hayashi chose not to immediately tell Neji the truth about his father's death. He believed Neji was too young to understand the complexity of the situation. This was a terrible mistake. Neji was old enough to hear rumors. People talked about the Hyuga affair throughout the village. Neji heard fragments of the story that his father died, that it involved protecting the main house, that the leadership arranged it. Without the full context, Neji drew his own conclusions. He believed that the main house had forced his father to die. He believed they sacrificed Hisashi because he was branch family and therefore expendable. He believed the cursed seal had stolen his father's choice and his life. This belief shaped everything about Neji's personality for years. He became cold and serious, abandoning the kindness he had shown as a small child. He developed a philosophy that fate was predetermined from birth and could never be changed. He believed that people born into the branch house would always serve, that people born into the main house would always rule, and that no amount of talent or effort could overcome the circumstances of birth. His cursed seal proved it. The seal could never be removed except by death. Therefore, he would never be free until he died. He called himself a caged bird, trapped in a destiny he never chose and could never escape. Neji's resentment toward the main house, and particularly toward Hinata, grew stronger as he got older. In the anime, he missed no opportunity to try to harm her during training. He saw her as the symbol of everything wrong with the system, someone less talented than himself who would receive all the privileges and advanced training simply because of her birth. When Neji graduated from the academy at the top of his class at age 12, he was placed on Team Guy alongside Rock Lee and Tenten. His philosophy about unchangeable fate put him in direct conflict with Rock Lee, who believed that hard work could overcome any limitation. The cursed seal system affected far more than just Neji. The entire branch house lived under this control. New rules and traditions were established centuries ago that reflected the power imbalance. Only main house members were allowed to learn the advanced techniques of the gentle fist. The branch house received only the fundamentals. This ensured that even if a branch member rebelled, they would never be as powerful as a main house member with full training. Should any branch house member show defiance toward the main house, they would be punished with crippling pain or even death at the whim of a main house member. The seal linked directly to the chakra pathways within the brain, making the pain it caused especially severe and debilitating. The system created an atmosphere where branch members walked around with literal death sentences etched on their foreheads. At any moment, for any reason, a main house member could activate their seal and kill them by destroying their brain cells. Branch members were raised from childhood to believe that the death of the main house was the death of the clan itself, and that their duty was to give their lives to protect the main house. They were taught that they existed only to serve. Some branch members accepted this fate with resignation. Others harbored resentment and hatred but felt powerless to change anything. The system had existed for generations. It was simply the way things were in the Hyuga clan. The truth about Hisashi's death finally came to light years later, during the Chunin exams. Neji faced Naruto Uzumaki in the tournament finals. During their fight, Neji expressed his beliefs about fate and destiny, about how people could never escape the roles they were born into. Naruto, who had been born with a demon sealed inside him and had been hated by the village for it, rejected this philosophy completely. He proved through sheer determination that he could overcome his circumstances. Naruto defeated Neji in battle, shattering his belief that destiny was absolute. After the match, Neji was taken to the hospital to recover from his injuries. Hisashi visited him there. In front of his nephew, Hisashi explained the truth about Hisashi's death. He revealed that Hisashi chose to die not because the cursed seal forced him, not because the branch house rules demanded it, but because he wanted to protect his brother and choose his own fate for the first time in his life. To show his sincerity and beg forgiveness for not revealing this truth sooner, Hisashi bowed deeply to Neji. This gesture was enormous. The head of the Hyuga clan, a main house member, bowing to a branch house member and apologizing. Neji was moved to tears by this revelation and by his uncle's gesture. He asked Hisashi to stand. For the first time since his father's death, Neji believed that change was possible. He understood that his father had found freedom not through death itself, but through the choice to die on his own terms. Neji decided that he too would choose his own destiny. He decided his destiny would be to never lose again, to become strong enough to protect the people he cared about. Years later, during the Fourth Shinobi World War, Neji faced a choice that echoed his father's sacrifice. The Ten-Tails, a massive beast of pure destructive power, launched an attack directly at Naruto and Hinata. Neji threw himself in front of them, taking the full force of the attack with his own body. He died, protecting his cousin and his friend, choosing his fate just as his father had chosen his. As Neji died, the caged bird seal on his forehead disappeared for the first time since it had been placed there when he was 4 years old. In death, Neji was finally free. Neji's sacrifice had lasting effects beyond his death. His death devastated those who knew him. Rock Lee found his body and cried while holding his rival and friend. Hisashi was filled with guilt and remorse, feeling that he had failed both his brother and his nephew. But most importantly, Neji's death and the philosophy he had come to embrace helped change the Hyuga clan itself. After the war ended, the Hyuga clan discontinued the practice of branding branch members with the cursed seal. The system that had existed for generations finally ended, partly because of Neji's death and his beliefs about choosing one's own destiny. In the Boruto era, the period of relative peace that followed the war, the Hyuga clan no longer separates itself into main house and branch house in the same rigid way. During the war, Hayashi himself stated that the two branches were united. The practice of placing the caged bird seal on children has stopped. Young Hyuga clan members grow up without the mark of servitude on their foreheads. They can pursue their own paths without the threat of torture or death hanging over them simply because of their birth order. But the damage done by generations of this system cannot be easily erased. The caged bird seal represented one of the darkest aspects of the hidden villages, the way powerful clans would use brutal methods to protect their secrets and maintain their power structures. The Hyuga clan justified the seal as necessary to protect the Byakugan from theft, and this justification held some truth. Villages like Kumogakure repeatedly attempted to kidnap Hyuga members or steal their eyes. But the seal's secondary purpose to control and punish branch members revealed that protecting the bloodline was not the only goal. The system also maintained the main house's power and ensured that talented branch members could never threaten the established hierarchy. The fact that the cursed seal could be placed on children as young as 4 years old demonstrates the cruelty of the system. These children had no choice, no ability to consent, and no way to remove the seal once it was placed. They would spend their entire lives knowing that at any moment, someone from the main house could cause them unbearable pain or death with a single hand seal. They would die knowing that the seal would destroy their eyes, erasing even their physical legacy. The psychological impact of living under this level of control is difficult to imagine. What makes the Hyuga system particularly disturbing is that it existed openly within Konoha, a village that supposedly valued protecting its citizens. Every Hokage, from the founding of the village until Naruto became Hokage, allowed this practice to continue. The third Hokage, who was known for his kindness, never attempted to abolish the cursed seal system. The fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, who was beloved by the village, did nothing to address it. The fifth Hokage, Tsunade, who fought for medical reforms and valued human life, permitted it to continue. The cursed seal system was treated as an internal clan matter, something the village leadership would not interfere with, even though it clearly represented a form of slavery and child abuse. The reason for this inaction was likely political. The Hyuga clan was one of the 4 noble clans of Konoha and one of its most powerful families. Interfering with their traditions risked angering them and potentially losing their support or causing them to leave the village. The Hokages chose political stability over protecting the branch house members. They chose to look the other way while children were branded with torture devices. This complicity makes the village leadership partially responsible for the suffering that branch house members endured for generations. It took someone who had experienced similar rejection and hatred, Naruto Uzumaki, to finally understand how wrong the system was. Naruto had been treated as a monster by the village because of the 9 tails sealed inside him. He understood what it meant to be judged and controlled because of circumstances beyond your control. When he eventually became Hokage and married Hinata, a former heiress of the Hyuga clan, the two of them worked together to change the clan's ways. Hinata provided the internal knowledge and influence, while Naruto provided the external authority and moral conviction. The caged bird seal and the branch house system represent one of the darkest chapters in the history of the hidden villages. It shows how traditions, once established, can persist for generations even when they cause tremendous suffering. It shows how powerful clans could abuse their members with impunity. It shows how children could be marked as property and controlled through pain and fear. And it shows that change, though difficult and costly, is possible. Neji and his father both died, but their deaths helped break a cycle that had lasted for centuries. The branch house members who came after them would never have to wear the caged bird seal. They would never have to call themselves caged birds. They would be free to choose their own destinies, just as Hisashi and Neji had finally chosen theirs. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Danzo's foundation and the psychological conditioning of root operatives trained to kill without hesitation, even against their own comrades. Danzo Foundation and the brainwashing of root operatives raised to kill their own brothers. Among all the dark secrets hidden within Konohagakure, few organizations were as brutal or as morally compromised as Root. Known officially as the Foundation, Root was a branch of Konoha's Anbu training subdivision, founded and led by Danzo Shimura. While the regular Anbu carried out dangerous missions for the village, Root existed in the deepest shadows, operating completely independently of Konoha's official authority and answering only to Danzo himself. Root believed they were the unseen roots that supported the great tree of Konoha from deep beneath the earth. But the price of becoming a Root operative was the complete destruction of everything that made someone human: their name, their emotions, their choices, and often their lives. Danzo Shimura created Root shortly after the third Hokage took power. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, was known for his empathetic and diplomatic approach to leadership. Danzo believed this kindness was weakness, and that someone needed to do the dirty work that Hiruzen refused to do. In the anime, Hiruzen actually permitted Danzo to create Root as a way to balance out his own more merciful style of rule. While Hiruzen led in the light, making decisions based on compassion and diplomacy, Danzo operated in the darkness, willing to use any method no matter how cruel or immoral if he believed it would protect Konoha. This arrangement created a system where terrible crimes could be committed without the Hokage's direct approval, but also without effective oversight or accountability. Danzo recruited Root members himself, without interference from the Hokage. He favored children from clans with special talents and abilities, particularly those with Kekkei Genkai or unique skills. Many of these children were orphans with no family to protect them or question what happened to them. Once recruited into Root, these children underwent training designed to strip away their humanity and transform them into perfect, emotionless weapons. The training was brutal, comprehensive, and permanent. Root operatives were conditioned to have no personality, no personal connections, and no sense of identity beyond their service to Danzo and his vision of protecting Konoha. The first thing Root did to new recruits was take away their names. Each member received only a code name. Even the members themselves did not know their original names or the real names of their fellow operatives. This erasure of identity was deliberate. A person without a name has no past, no family history, and no individual existence. They become interchangeable tools rather than people. Sai, one of the most prominent Root members who would later join Team Kakashi, never learned his real name. The name Sai was given to him specifically for the mission of joining Team Kakashi, but it was not his birth name. His actual name was lost forever in Root's training program. Root operatives wore distinctive uniforms that marked them as different from regular Anbu. While normal Anbu carried katanas as their primary weapons, Root members carried tipless tanto swords. They wore jackets with red straps that showed their allegiance to the organization. These visual markers served as constant reminders that Root operatives belonged to Danzo, not to the village or the Hokage. They were his personal army, loyal only to him and his interpretation of what was best for Konoha. But the most controlling and sinister aspect of Root was the cursed seal that Danzo placed on every member. This seal was imprinted on the back of the tongue and took the shape of 3 solid lines and 2 broken lines running from the back of the tongue to the tip. The seal served as an absolute insurance policy against betrayal or information leaks. When any Root member tried to speak about anything incriminating related to Danzo or the Root organization, the seal would activate automatically. Once activated, the seal would paralyze the entire body, taking away the ability to speak or move. Sai explained that the seal existed to prevent information leaks if Root members were captured and interrogated by enemy forces. Even under torture, a Root member could not reveal secrets because their body would shut down before they could speak. This tongue seal gave Danzo complete control over his operatives, even when they were not in his presence. They could never expose his crimes, never reveal Root's missions, and never seek help from the Hokage or other village leadership. They were trapped in an organization with no escape except death. The seal disappeared only when Danzo died. Until that moment, every Root member wore a permanent control device that could render them helpless at any attempt to speak the truth. This level of control went beyond military discipline or organizational loyalty. It was enslavement through fuinjutsu, the use of sealing techniques to rob people of their free will and agency. The training methods Root used to eliminate emotions were perhaps even more horrifying than the tongue seal. Danzo designed a system specifically intended to destroy any capacity for love, friendship, or compassion. Children recruited into Root were raised together as brothers from a very young age. They trained together, lived together, ate together, and formed bonds despite the organization's attempts to prevent emotional connections. These bonds were natural and inevitable. Young children will form attachments to those around them, no matter how much they are told not to. Root allowed and even encouraged these brotherly relationships to develop over years. Then came the final step of Root training. After the children had grown close and truly thought of each other as brothers, Danzo would order them to fight each other to the death. The training that had brought them together as family was designed from the beginning to end in fratricide, the killing of one's own brother. This method was extremely similar, if not identical, to the former graduation test at Kirigakura Academy, where students were forced to kill their classmates to graduate. The purpose was to completely kill any sense of sentiment or emotional attachment. A child who could kill the person they loved as a brother would supposedly be incapable of feeling emotions ever again. The most heartbreaking example of this system was Sai and his adoptive brother Shin. Sai was orphaned as a young child and recruited into Root, where he underwent conditioning to remove all emotions and personal connections. Despite this conditioning, Sai retained an interest in art and would draw pictures in black and white. Shin, an older Root member, discovered Sai's artistic talent. Instead of reporting it as a weakness or trying to suppress it, Shin encouraged Sai to continue drawing. Over time, the two became very close. Sai came to think of Shin as an older brother and looked up to him. They shared experiences, fought opponents together, and developed a genuine bond. Unfortunately, Root training called for Sai and Shin to fight to the death as the final step to eradicate all remaining emotions. Before this forced battle could happen, however, Shin died of an unnamed illness. In the anime, the forced fight was initiated, but Shin, knowing he was dying from illness anyway, told Sai to report to Danzo that Sai had killed him in battle. Before dying, Shin told his younger brother that he had to suppress his feelings and live for both of them. Sai's Root training then suppressed most of the memories he had of Shin, burying the trauma and the love he felt for his brother. Before Shin's death, Sai had created a picture book that would depict all the opponents they faced together and illustrate the feelings they shared for each other. Sai organized the book so that his portrait and Shin's portrait would be located at opposite ends of the book, and the center pages would show a picture of them holding hands. After Shin died, Sai forgot his original intention for the book and left it unfinished. He could never bring himself to discard it, though he no longer remembered why it was important. The incomplete picture book represented everything Root destroyed: love, connection, memory, and the freedom to choose who to care about. This pattern repeated throughout Root. Young operatives were raised as brothers, developed genuine bonds despite their training, and then were ordered to kill each other. Those who survived and successfully killed their brothers became emotionless shells capable of carrying out any mission without hesitation or moral doubt. Those who refused or failed to kill their brothers were themselves killed, ensuring that only the most thoroughly conditioned operatives remained. The organization filtered out anyone capable of empathy or mercy, creating a force of assassins who could commit atrocities without the psychological burden that would affect normal shinobi. Root's missions reflected Danzo's ruthless philosophy. The organization carried out assassinations of individuals that Danzo considered potential threats to Konoha, even if those individuals had not actually done anything against the village. If someone simply expressed dislike for Konoha, Root might eliminate them preemptively. Root also conducted espionage operations, infiltrating other villages to steal secrets and gather intelligence. These missions were carried out in complete darkness, without Konoha's official knowledge or authorization. Because Root members could not speak about their missions due to the tongue seal, they could commit crimes without fear that their victims' families or the international community would ever trace the attacks back to Konoha. One of Root's most skilled members was Kabuto Yakushi, who was recruited as a child from an orphanage. Danzo assigned Kabuto to infiltrate all 5 great shinobi villages over several years, collecting information and conducting espionage. Kabuto became an exceptionally capable spy, so skilled that he eventually became a threat to Root itself. Kabuto had been raised by Nono Yakushi, a former Root member who ran the orphanage. Nono was also an elite in intelligence gathering and had reluctantly accepted a mission to infiltrate Iwagakure for years. When Danzo decided that both Kabuto and Nono had become too skilled and therefore too dangerous to root, he engineered a plan to have them kill each other. Danzo used long-term brainwashing techniques on Nono, gradually switching the photographs she had of Kabuto with pictures of a different person over time. He told her these photos showed what Kabuto looked like as he grew up. Then Danzo told Nono that Kabuto had joined Root to protect the orphanage, and that she could secure his release by assassinating a certain target. The target he sent her to kill was the real Kabuto. Nono, not recognizing him because of the switched photos, attacked. Kabuto defended himself and killed her in the fight. He fled after realizing that his mother figure did not remember him. This manipulation resulted in Nono's death and drove Kabuto to ally himself with Orochimaru, who was himself a former associate of Root and would eventually defect completely from Konoha. Root was officially disbanded after the Uchiha clan downfall. When the third Hokage discovered Danzo's role in orchestrating the massacre, having pressured Itachi Uchiha into killing his entire clan, Hiruzen ordered Root dissolved and removed Danzo from the council as punishment. This should have been the end of Root's operations. However, Danzo simply continued running Root in secret, completely ignoring the Hokage's orders. The third Hokage either did not know about this continued activity or chose not to take stronger action against Danzo. This pattern repeated throughout Hiruzen's leadership. Danzo would commit terrible acts behind the Hokage's back, face minimal consequences, and continue operating with near impunity. Root remained active underground for years after the official disbandment. During Pain's assault on Konoha, Danzo ordered Root members not to help defend the village. He wanted the attack to succeed in weakening or killing the 5th Hokage Tsunade so that he could take the position himself. Danzo was willing to let his own village be destroyed and its people killed if it meant advancing his ambition to become Hokage. This decision allowed Pain to devastate Konoha with the Shinra Tensei technique, creating massive civilian casualties that could have been prevented if Root had joined the defense. After Pain's attack, Danzo was appointed acting 6th Hokage, giving him temporary control over the village. He used this position to attend the 5Kage Summit, bringing 2 of his most elite Root members as bodyguards. During the summit, Danzo attempted to manipulate the samurai leader Mifune using the stolen Sharingan of Shisui Uchiha. When his treachery was exposed, Danzo showed no guilt or remorse. On his way back from the summit, Danzo encountered Sasuke Uchiha, who had learned of Danzo's role in ordering the Uchiha massacre. In their battle, Sasuke mortally wounded Danzo with his Chidori technique. Danzo died from his injuries, and with his death, the cursed tongue seals on all Root members finally disappeared. The disbandment of Root after Danzo's death created complicated aftermath for its former members. Many Root operatives had been victims of Danzo's system, children taken and brainwashed into becoming killers. After the 4th Shinobi World War, the 5th and 6th Hokages prevented thorough investigations into Root members' identities and activities. This was meant to help former Root operatives integrate back into normal shinobi forces without facing suspicion or punishment for crimes they were forced to commit. However, this lack of accountability also meant that some of Danzo's fanatical followers escaped justice. One such follower was Tanuki Shigaraki, a Root scientist and fanatical devotee of Danzo. After his leader's death, Tanuki implanted a dangerous creature called the Gozu Tenno into his daughter Sumire and brainwashed her to carry out revenge against Konoha for shunning Root. This plot emerged in the Boruto era, showing that Root's legacy of trauma and violence continued to cause harm even after the organization's dissolution. Sai represents both the worst damage Root could inflict and the possibility of recovery. As a Root member, Sai carried out numerous assassinations of people deemed threats to Konoha. He was emotionless, efficient, and completely loyal to Danzo. Danzo himself considered Sai the strongest member of his generation, and trusted him enough to assign him the mission of assassinating Sasuke Uchiha single-handedly. When Sai was placed on Team Kakashi as Sasuke's replacement, his mission was to approach Orochimaru and kill Sasuke. But something unexpected happened when Sai spent time with Naruto Uzumaki and the rest of Team Kakashi. Naruto's refusal to give up on bonds, and his insistence that connections between people mattered, began to break through Sai's conditioning. Sai started to remember his brother Shin and the feelings they shared. He began to understand what bonds meant and why they were valuable. His training to eliminate emotions had been thorough but not quite perfect. When Sai encountered his brother Shin during the Fourth Shinobi World War, Shin had been reincarnated by Kabuto as a tool for the enemy. Sai experienced genuine rage and sadness for the first time in years. After Shin was freed from the reincarnation technique and disappeared, Sai shed real tears. Over time, Sai completely broke free from Root's brainwashing. He learned to smile genuinely, instead of the fake smiles he used to practice from books. He formed real friendships with his teammates. He fell in love with Ino Yamanaka and eventually married her and started a family. He came to understand that Danzo's intentions to protect the village were genuine, but his methods were fundamentally wrong and caused more suffering than they prevented. Sai's recovery demonstrates that Root's conditioning, while severe, was not completely irreversible for those who received support and connection from others who cared about them. The Root organization represents one of the darkest aspects of the Hidden Village system. It shows what happens when the philosophy of doing whatever is necessary to protect the village is taken to its extreme logical conclusion. Danzo believed that strength and security required eliminating emotion, choice, and humanity itself from his shinobi. He created child soldiers stripped of their identities, implanted with control seals, and forced to kill the people they loved. He operated completely outside the Hokage's authority, while claiming everything he did was for Konoha's benefit. The third Hokage's failure to stop Danzo, his repeated unwillingness to take decisive action against Root despite knowing about its crimes, made him complicit in Root's atrocities. By allowing Danzo to continue operating in the shadows, Hiruzen enabled decades of kidnapping, brainwashing, assassination, and psychological torture of children. The system created two Konohas, one that preached the will of fire and protecting comrades in the light, and another that murdered children and destroyed families in the darkness. This hypocrisy undermined everything the village claimed to stand for. Root existed for decades, operating through multiple wars and countless missions. The full scope of Root's crimes may never be known because the tongue seals prevented members from speaking about their activities even after Danzo's death lifted the paralysis effect. The organization trained hundreds of children to be emotionless killers, and many of those children died either in training, on missions, or when they were ordered to kill each other. Root's legacy is measured in stolen childhoods, destroyed families, and psychological damage that even the end of the organization could not fully heal. It stands as a warning about what happens when noble intentions protecting the village are used to justify utterly corrupt means brainwashing and murdering children to create perfect weapons. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to Orochimaru's human experimentation and the 60 abducted children used in his failed attempts to recreate wood release. Orochimaru human experiments and the 60 kidnapped children used to recreate wood release. Among the many crimes committed by shinobi in the name of power and knowledge, few were as systematic and coldly calculated as Orochimaru's experiments on children. One of the legendary Sannin, and once a respected ninja of Konohagakure, Orochimaru became obsessed with learning every jutsu that existed and achieving immortality. This obsession led him down a path where human lives became nothing more than test subjects in his quest for power. His most notorious early experiment involved 60 kidnapped children and the cells of a dead legend. Only one child survived, but that single success cost 59 young lives and revealed just how far a shinobi could fall when they stopped seeing others as human beings. The target of Orochimaru's ambition was wood release, the legendary Kekkei Genkai of Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage. Hashirama was considered the strongest shinobi who ever lived, capable of controlling massive forests and even subduing tailed beasts through his unique ability to combine earth and water nature transformations into living wood. This power was so rare and so coveted that it existed in only one person in all of recorded history. After Hashirama died, his unique bloodline limit seemed lost forever. No one in his clan inherited it. No one could replicate it. The power died with him, buried in his grave alongside his body. But Orochimaru was not content to let that power stay buried. At some point, after Hashirama's death, likely decades later, Orochimaru exhumed the first Hokage's body. He harvested cells from the remains and began experimenting with ways to implant those cells into living subjects. His theory was simple. If he could successfully transplant Hashirama's DNA into another person, that person might gain the ability to use wood release. With that power, Orochimaru would have a perfect vessel for his soul transfer technique, or at minimum, a powerful weapon under his control. What he needed were test subjects, and for reasons that reveal the depths of his moral depravity, Orochimaru chose children. 60 children were kidnapped. The exact circumstances of each abduction are not fully documented, but we know they came from within the Fire Nation, likely from villages and towns around Konohagakure. These were not orphans taken from the streets or volunteers recruited with promises. They were children stolen from their families and homes. Among them was a boy who would later be known as Yamato, though at the time of his kidnapping, he was just an infant in the manga version of events, or a young child in the anime. He had just graduated from the Ninja Academy at age 6 and had been promoted to the rank of Chunin, showing exceptional promise as a shinobi. Then Orochimaru took him, and that normal childhood ended forever. The experiment was straightforward in concept but horrific in execution. Orochimaru injected each of the 60 children with Hashirama's DNA, then placed them in test tubes where they would remain while the cells either successfully integrated with their bodies or killed them. The children had no choice in this. They were subjects, not patients. They could not refuse treatment or ask to be released. They were sealed in glass containers filled with liquid, fully or partially submerged, and left to either survive or die as the first Hokage's cells either merged with their own genetic material or rejected catastrophically. In the anime, we learn that the boy who would become Yamato was fully conscious during his time in the test tube. He could see and hear everything around him, and what he saw was other children dying. One by one, day by day, the other test subjects perished. Their bodies could not handle the integration of Hashirama's cells. The DNA was too powerful, too foreign, too incompatible with normal human physiology. Each failed integration meant another dead child. The test tubes that had held living, breathing young people became coffins, and the survivors watched it happen, knowing they might be next. We do not know exactly how long the experiments lasted. We do not know if the children died quickly or slowly. We do not know if they suffered or if the end came mercifully fast. What we know is that all of them died except one. 59 children were killed by Orochimaru's experiment. 59 families lost their sons and daughters. 59 young lives were snuffed out in pursuit of a power that belonged to someone already dead and buried. The mortality rate was over 98%. Only one child in 60 survived the process. Before Orochimaru could finalize the results of his experiments and determine whether his lone survivor was truly successful, he was caught. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, discovered Orochimaru conducting these and other forbidden experiments. Exactly how Hiruzen learned about them is not detailed, but the discovery forced Orochimaru to flee Konohagakure. Orochimaru had been one of the legendary Sannin, a hero of past wars, and one of the most respected shinobi in the village. He had even been considered as a candidate for 4th Hokage, but his human experimentation crossed a line that even wartime pragmatism could not excuse. Hiruzen could not overlook the kidnapping and murder of children for forbidden research. Orochimaru abandoned his laboratory and escaped before he could be captured. In his haste to flee, Orochimaru left behind all 60 test subjects. He believed they would all die. Every other child had perished after a certain amount of time, and he had no reason to believe the last survivor would be any different. Orochimaru fled the village, assuming that his entire experiment had failed, that all 60 children were dead or dying, and that he would need to start over elsewhere with different methods. He was wrong about one thing. One child survived. The boy in the test tube, the one who had watched all the others die, somehow endured what killed the rest. The first Hokage's cells successfully integrated with his body instead of destroying it. Whether this was pure genetic luck, some unknown factor in his physiology, or simply random chance is unclear. What is clear is that after Orochimaru abandoned the laboratory, this child used wood release for the first time. He created wood from his own body, breaking through the test tube that had held him prisoner. He escaped his glass prison and found himself alone in an abandoned laboratory filled with 59 dead children. The trauma of this experience was complete. The boy had no memory of who he was. He did not know his name, where he came from, or who his family had been. Everything before the experiment and during the long days in the test tube was gone. Whether this amnesia was caused by psychological trauma from watching the other children die, a side effect of the cell integration process, or deliberate memory suppression by Orochimaru is unknown. The result was the same either way. A young child with extraordinary power and no past, alone in a nightmare laboratory, surrounded by the corpses of other children. This is where Danzo Shimura enters the story. Danzo, the leader of Root and one of Konoha's most ruthless operators, discovered the boy wandering or hiding near the abandoned laboratory. When Danzo saw that the child could use wood release, the legendary power of the first Hokage that everyone believed was lost forever, he immediately understood the value of what he had found. This was not a traumatized child who needed help. This was a weapon that Danzo could use for his own purposes. Danzo took the boy into Root, gave him the codename Kinoe, and began training him as one of his personal operatives. Under Danzo's control, the boy who survived Orochimaru's experiments became one of Root's most valuable members. Danzo trained him personally in how to use wood release, teaching him to combine water and earth-nature transformations to create vegetation and control it in combat. Danzo also gave him access to scrolls that detailed Hashirama Senju's various wood release techniques, allowing the boy to learn directly from the first Hokage's own documented methods. The child proved to be exceptionally talented. He would go on to become one of the finest shinobi serving under the third Hokage, with one of the best performance records of any Anbu operative, but he would never be as powerful as Hashirama Senju himself. The wood release he inherited through Orochimaru's experiments was weaker, cruder, and more limited than the original. He could create wood and control it, yes. He could even suppress tailed beasts to some degree, using the first Hokage's necklace to amplify his power. But he freely admitted that his abilities were pale in comparison to what Hashirama could do. He was not a natural user of wood release. He was an artificial copy, created through the torture and death of 59 other children, surviving only by genetic accident. The boy's life after joining Root was complicated and dark. Under the name Kinoe, he participated in Root missions, including an attempted assassination of the third Hokage himself. During this mission, he fought against Kakashi Hatake, who had recently joined Root after the death of his sensei, the fourth Hokage. Kakashi defeated Kinoe but chose to spare his life, believing the young wood release user could become a valuable ally in the future. This decision changed everything. Kino began following Kakashi and observing him, trying to understand why Kakashi showed mercy when Root taught that emotions were weakness. Eventually, Kinoe was sent on a mission to deliver a message to Orochimaru, who was hiding in a secret location with the Iburi clan. During this mission, he encountered a young girl named Yukimi, who insisted that Kinoe was her lost brother Tenzo. This was not true, they simply looked similar, but the girl's affection for him and her use of the name Tenzo affected him deeply. For the first time since waking up in that laboratory, someone treated him like a person with an identity, rather than a weapon or a test subject. When circumstances forced him to choose between following Danzo's orders and saving Yukimi's life, he chose to save her. This choice led to his break from Root. Danzo was furious that Kino had disobeyed orders and attempted to have him killed. Kakashi intervened again, fighting to protect the young wood release user. The third Hokage himself arrived and forced Danzo to release Kinoe into Hiruzen's care. Finally free from Danzo's control, the boy chose to keep the name Tenzo that Yukimi had called him. It was not his birth name, he still did not remember that and never would, but it was the name given to him by someone who cared about him as a person. Tenzo became his identity. As Tenzo, he continued serving in the Anbu, but now under the third Hokage's direct command, rather than Danzo's control. He worked alongside Kakashi, who became his captain and closest friend. When the Uchiha clan massacre occurred, Tenzo was part of the team mobilized to investigate, though the slaughter had already been completed by the time they arrived. Throughout these years, Tenzo built a reputation as an exceptionally skilled and reliable ninja. His wood release abilities made him unique, and his personality careful, methodical, loyal, and serious made him an ideal Anbu operative. Years later, when Team Kakashi needed a temporary captain while Kakashi was hospitalized, the 5th Hokage Tsunade assigned Tenzo to lead the team. To protect his Anbu identity, Tsunade gave him yet another codename, Yamato. This name stuck. To most people, including Naruto, Uzumaki, and Sakura Haruno, he became known as Captain Yamato, or simply Yamato. But to those who knew him from his Anbu days, particularly Kakashi, he remained Tenzo. Neither name was his birth name. The boy who was kidnapped by Orochimaru had lost his original identity forever. He existed as a series of codenames, each representing a different phase of his traumatic life. The first time Yamato led Team 7 on a mission, they went to meet one of Sasori's spies within Orochimaru's organization. That spy turned out to be Kabuto Yakushi, and the meeting was crashed by Orochimaru himself. When Orochimaru saw Yamato use wood release, he immediately realized what had happened. One of his test subjects had survived. The experiment he had abandoned years ago, believing it was a complete failure that killed all 60 children, had actually produced a success. Orochimaru's reaction was not guilt or remorse for the 59 dead children. It was excitement that his research had worked, and curiosity about how strong the survivor had become. This encounter must have been devastating for Yamato on multiple levels. He came face to face with the man who had kidnapped him as a child, who had injected him with the DNA of a dead legend, who had watched 59 other children die in test tubes, and who had abandoned him to die as well. And Orochimaru's only interest was in Yamato's usefulness as a data point in his research. There was no acknowledgement of the horror inflicted, no recognition of the lives destroyed, no understanding that what he had done to those 60 children was monstrous. To Orochimaru, they were experiments. That they were also people seemed irrelevant. Yamato went on to serve Konoha loyally for years. He helped Naruto train to use the Rasen Shuriken and to control the Nine Tails chakra. He participated in the Fourth Shinobi World War, where he was captured by Kabuto Yakushi and used as a source of Hashirama's cells to strengthen the White Zetsu army. After the war ended, Yamato was assigned by the 7th Hokage Naruto to monitor Orochimaru, who had been allowed to remain in his laboratory and continue research in exchange for helping the village. The survivor of Orochimaru's experiments spent his later years watching the man who created him through torture, ensuring he did not hurt anyone else the way he had been hurt. The story of Orochimaru's experiment with 60 children reveals multiple layers of darkness within the shinobi world. First, it shows how the pursuit of power can completely override moral boundaries. Orochimaru was not some rogue element operating outside the village system. He was one of the legendary Sannin, a respected war hero, a candidate for Hokage. Yet he kidnapped and experimented on 60 children without apparent hesitation. The same shinobi society that produced legends and heroes also produced monsters who saw children as raw materials for research. Second, it reveals the inadequacy of oversight and accountability. Orochimaru conducted these experiments for some time before being caught. 60 children went missing. They were taken from their homes and families. Yet, the village's security systems and intelligence networks failed to detect this mass kidnapping happening within or near Konoha's borders. Either the systems failed catastrophically, or people within those systems chose not to investigate too closely what one of the legendary Sannin was doing in his private laboratory. The latter possibility is deeply disturbing. Third, the aftermath shows how the village dealt with the consequences. When Orochimaru fled, what happened to the 59 dead children? Were their bodies returned to their families? Were the families even told what happened to their missing children? The sources do not say. What we know is that the sole survivor was immediately taken by Danzo and turned into a weapon for Root. There is no mention of trying to help the traumatized child recover his memories or find his family. There is no mention of providing therapy or support for a child who watched 59 others die. The village's response was to exploit the successful experiment, not to care for the victim. Fourth, it demonstrates the casual acceptance of child endangerment in the shinobi system. Yamato was 6 years old when he graduated from the academy and made Chunin. This was celebrated as a mark of his exceptional talent, but it also means he was doing dangerous missions as a young child. When Orochimaru kidnapped him, he was either an infant or a child young enough to be easily taken. The village trained children to fight and kill, then acted surprised when those children were targeted by people like Orochimaru, who saw them as convenient test subjects. Finally, the fact that Orochimaru was eventually allowed to return to Konoha and continue his research shows the village's willingness to forgive almost any crime if the criminal is useful enough. Orochimaru kidnapped 60 children. He injected them with cells that killed 59 of them. He traumatized the survivor so severely that the boy lost all memory of his identity. And after the Fourth Shinobi World War, when Orochimaru helped the Allied shinobi forces, he was pardoned and permitted to operate his laboratory openly. The message was clear. If you are powerful enough and useful enough, even the murder of children can be overlooked. Yamato's existence stands as a living reminder of Orochimaru's crimes and the shinobi world's moral failures. He is the only survivor of an experiment that killed 59 children. He carries Hashirama Senju's power in his body, but he also carries the trauma of watching his fellow test subjects die one by one. He has no memory of his real name, his family, or his life before Orochimaru destroyed it. He exists as a series of code names assigned by others: Kinoe, Tenzo, Yamato, none of them truly his own. He is a weapon created through suffering, a success built on a foundation of 59 failures, a living testament to what happens when the pursuit of power matters more than human life. The 60 children kidnapped by Orochimaru represent one of the darkest chapters in Konoha's history. They were not soldiers who died in battle. They were not shinobi who fell protecting their village. They were children who were taken from their homes, experimented on without consent, and systematically killed by a process designed to benefit their murderer. 59 died in those test tubes. One survived, but at the cost of everything that made him who he was. And the man responsible was eventually welcomed back to the village because his knowledge was useful. That is the true horror at the heart of this story. Not just that it happened, but that the village that allowed it to happen saw nothing wrong with forgiving the perpetrator when it became convenient to do so. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Next up, the Jinchuriki treated as living weapons and the lifelong persecution endured by hosts like Naruto and Gaara. In the world of shinobi, few fates were more brutal than becoming a Jinchuriki. These were people who had powerful creatures called tailed beasts sealed inside their bodies, turning them into living weapons for their villages. The tailed beasts themselves were ancient beings made of pure chakra, originally created by the Sage of Six Paths thousands of years ago when he divided the monstrous 10 tails into 9 separate entities. Each beast had a different number of tails, from 1 to 9, and the more tails a beast had, the more powerful it was considered to be. For centuries after their creation, humans saw these tailed beasts only as demons and monsters worthy of fear. Villages sought to capture them and use them as weapons during times of war. To harness this incredible power, the villages developed sealing techniques that would trap these beasts inside human hosts. This created the first Jinchuriki, people who carried these creatures within their own bodies from birth or early childhood. The villages believed this was the only way to control the beasts and use their strength in battle. But the Jinchuriki paid a terrible price for being chosen as these living weapons. The process of creating a Jinchuriki was dangerous and often deadly. Villages typically selected infants or very young children to become hosts, believing they would grow up alongside their beast and learn to control it over time. Different villages used different sealing techniques. Konoha used the 8 trigram sealing style, while the Cloud Village used the iron armor seal. The seals were designed to contain the beast's power while allowing the Jinchuriki to gradually access and use that power in combat. But the seal was only the beginning of the Jinchuriki's suffering. From the moment a tailed beast was sealed inside them, Jinchuriki became targets of hatred and fear from their own people. Villagers could not separate the human from the monster inside them. They saw only the beast that had once terrorized their homes, killed their loved ones, and destroyed their villages. The Jinchuriki were treated not as children who had been burdened with an impossible task, but as the very demons they contained. This fear and hatred followed them throughout their entire lives, making them some of the loneliest people in the shinobi world. Naruto Uzumaki experienced this persecution from the day he was born. On October 10th, the 9-tailed fox, known as Kurama, attacked the Hidden Leaf village in a devastating rampage. The beast was impossibly powerful, the strongest of all 9-tailed beasts, and it tore through Konoha with unstoppable force. Buildings were destroyed, countless shinobi died trying to stop it, and the village was pushed to the brink of total destruction. The 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze, made the ultimate sacrifice to save his village. He sealed the 9 tails inside his newborn son Naruto, dying in the process, along with his wife Kushina Uzumaki, who had been the previous Jinchuriki of Kurama. Minato's dying wish was for his son to be seen as a hero who saved the village by becoming the 9 tails host, but the majority of Konoha could not see past their pain and loss. They looked at the infant Naruto and saw only the monster that had killed their friends and family. Some villagers even believed that Naruto was the 9 tails itself, not understanding that he was simply a child with the beast sealed inside him. The 3rd Hokage, who came out of retirement to lead the village again, tried to protect Naruto by forbidding anyone from speaking about the 9 tails. He hoped that if the younger generation didn't know about the attack, they wouldn't hate Naruto the way their parents did. But his plan failed completely. Naruto grew up as an orphan, not knowing who his parents were or why they had died. The 3rd Hokage gave him only his mother's surname, Uzumaki, to protect him from his father's enemies who might target the fourth Hokage's son. The village provided Naruto with monthly income so he could afford food and basic necessities, but money could not buy him what he truly needed. He received no love, no friendship, no acknowledgement that he even existed as a human being. The adults in the village openly rejected him, refusing to serve him in shops, glaring at him with undisguised hatred whenever he walked down the street. They never physically harmed him or directly threatened his life, but their constant rejection was a different kind of cruelty. Even though the younger generation didn't know the specific reason why, they copied their parents' hatred perfectly. Children who grew up alongside Naruto learned to fear and avoid him, though they couldn't explain why. They simply knew that everyone hated the blonde boy with the strange whisker marks on his face, so they hated him too. This left Naruto completely isolated with no friends, no family, no one who cared whether he lived or died. The third Hokage and a few others like Iruka Umino were among the very few who showed Naruto any kindness, but they could not erase the deep loneliness that consumed his childhood. The isolation drove Naruto to desperate measures to gain attention. Since no one would acknowledge him as a person, he resorted to pulling pranks all over the village. He would paint graffiti on the Hokage monument, cause chaos in the streets, and constantly get into trouble just so people would look at him, even if it was with anger and frustration. Any attention was better than being invisible and forgotten. This behavior only made the villagers hate him more, creating a cycle where Naruto acted out to be noticed, which made people reject him even harder, which drove him to even more extreme pranks. Through all of this, Naruto never retaliated with real violence or tried to hurt the people who hurt him. Despite everything, he remained fundamentally kind and refused to let the hatred completely destroy who he was. Naruto's greatest dream became to be recognized by his village and respected as the Hokage, the village leader. He believed that if he could become Hokage, the villagers would finally have to acknowledge his existence and treat him as someone who mattered. This dream kept him going through years of rejection and loneliness. It took many years and countless battles before Naruto finally earned the respect he desperately craved, eventually becoming the 7th Hokage. But the scars from his childhood persecution never fully disappeared. If Naruto's childhood was difficult, Gaara of the Sand experienced something even more horrific. Gaara was the youngest son of the 4th Kazekage, leader of the Hidden Sand Village. Because the Land of Wind's leader had cut Tsunagakure's budget and was hiring cheaper services from other villages, the Sand Village faced potential extinction. Desperate to save his village, the 4th Kazekage decided to create the ultimate weapon. He ordered the village elder Chiyo to seal the one-tailed beast Shukaku inside his unborn son while the child was still in his mother's womb. The sealing process was catastrophic. Gaara's mother Karura died from the strain of having Shukaku sealed inside her while she was pregnant, and Gaara was born prematurely as a tiny, frail infant. Before she died, Karura held her newborn son and promised she would always protect him. But Gaara never knew about this final act of love. He only knew that his mother had died giving birth to him, and that everyone blamed him for her death. His father, the Kazekage, also blamed Gaara for killing his wife, and this resentment poisoned any chance of Gaara having a normal childhood. From birth, Gaara was raised in complete isolation. His father taught him ninjutsu, but kept him separated from his older siblings Temari and Kankuro, refusing to let them form any bond with their younger brother. The villagers of Tsunagakure feared and hated Gaara, just as Konoha's villagers hated Naruto, but Gaara's persecution went even further. The one-tailed beast Shukaku was violent and bloodthirsty, constantly threatening to take over Gaara's body and go on rampages. Because Gaara couldn't sleep without Shukaku attempting to possess him and kill people he cared about, Gaara developed chronic insomnia that lasted his entire childhood. The constant threat of the beast taking control, combined with the village's hatred and his father's coldness, pushed Gaara toward complete psychological breakdown. The only person who seemed to care about Gaara was his uncle Yashimaru, his mother's younger brother. Yashimaru was assigned as Gaara's caretaker and became the only source of warmth in the boy's life. Unlike everyone else, Yashimaru tried to understand why Gaara accidentally hurt people when Shukaku's sand protected him from danger. He taught Gaara about love and pain and made him believe that at least one person in the world cared whether he lived or died. For 6 years, Yashimaru was Gaara's only connection to humanity, and the only thing keeping him from completely giving up on life. Then, when Gaara was 6 years old, everything shattered. Gaara's inability to control Shukaku had caused several destructive rampages that endangered the village. The Sand Village Council deemed him a failed experiment and a threat that needed to be eliminated. Gaara's own father, the fourth Kazekage, decided to test whether Gaara could control Shukaku by ordering Yashimaru to assassinate the boy both physically and psychologically. Yashimaru was torn about the mission, arguing that Gaara was just a child and that the plan was too cruel. But as the Kazekage's right-hand man and an Anbu operative, he ultimately followed orders. One night, Yashimaru attacked Gaara in the streets. Gaara defended himself without knowing who his attacker was, and his sand severely wounded the assassin. Only when Gaara approached the dying figure did he discover it was Yashimaru, the only person he loved and trusted. What happened next destroyed Gaara completely. As he lay dying, Yashimaru told Gaara a series of vicious lies on the Kazekage's orders. He claimed that he had always hated Gaara, that he could never forgive him for killing his sister during childbirth, that he had only pretended to care about him out of duty. He told Gaara that his mother had never loved him either, that she had named him Gaara after the phrase meaning a self-loving carnage, representing her hatred for the village and her curse upon it rather than any love for her son. Finally, Yashimaru declared that no one would ever love Gaara, and then detonated explosive tags hidden in his jacket in a final attempt to take Gaara with him to death. Gaara's sand protected him from the blast, but nothing could protect him from the psychological devastation. In one terrible moment, he had lost the only person who mattered to him, and learned that this person had apparently always hated him. The lies Yashimaru told completely broke something fundamental in Gaara's mind. Overwhelmed with grief and rage, Gaara transformed into the full form of Shukaku and attacked his own village in a rampage. His father stopped him using gold dust techniques, but the damage was done. Gaara used his sand to carve the kanji for love into his forehead as a permanent reminder that he would love only himself from that point forward, and that his existence only had meaning through killing others. The assassination attempt with Yashimaru was only the first of 6 total attempts the fourth Kazekage ordered on his son's life. All 5 subsequent attempts failed because Gaara's sand automatically protected him, but each attempt reinforced Gaara's belief that the entire world wanted him dead. Eventually, Gaara learned to control his powers through his single-minded focus on survival and destruction. When his father saw that Gaara could finally function as the weapon he wanted, the Kazekage stopped trying to kill him and instead began deploying him in missions where his violent instability would be useful. Gaara became exactly what the village wanted, a lethal, emotionless weapon of destruction who cared nothing for human life. It would only be years later, during the Fourth Shinobi World War, that Gaara learned the truth. When he faced his reanimated father on the battlefield, the fourth Kazekage finally confessed what really happened. He revealed that the sand that had always protected Gaara was not Shukaku's power, but actually his mother's will, because Karura had loved Gaara from the moment he was born and continued to protect him even in death. The Kazekage also admitted that he had forced Yashimaru to lie about hating Gaara and about Karura not loving him. Everything Yashimaru had said that terrible night was a lie told under orders. In reality, Yashimaru had genuinely loved his nephew and hated the Kazekage for what he did to both Karura and Gaara. But this truth came far too late to undo the years of trauma and the person Gaara had become because of those lies. Naruto and Gaara's experiences were not unique among Jinchuriki. Across the shinobi world, nearly every Jinchuriki suffered similar persecution. Yugito Nii, who had the 2 tails sealed in her at age 2, endured brutal training to control her beast. Han, Roshi, and Utakata all fled their villages as missing ninja because they couldn't endure the hatred and fear from their own people. According to Akatsuki members, the first 2 Jinchuriki they captured had completely lost faith in humanity, and their villages were actually glad to be rid of them. The villages saw Jinchuriki as necessary weapons, but also as potential threats, creating a paradox where they needed these people but also fundamentally feared and hated them. The criminal organization Akatsuki made the situation even worse for Jinchuriki. Led secretly by Madara Uchiha and later by Obito pretending to be Madara, Akatsuki hunted down every Jinchuriki to extract their tailed beasts and use them to revive the 10 tails. The extraction process was a death sentence. When Akatsuki used their sealing technique, Phantom Dragon's 9 consuming seals, to rip the tailed beast from its host, the Jinchuriki died almost immediately. The beast's chakra had become so intertwined with the host's own life force over the years that removing it was like removing a vital organ. Members of the Uzumaki clan, who had incredibly strong life forces, could survive the extraction for a short time, but even they would die without immediate intervention. Gaara was the first Jinchuriki Akatsuki captured, and he died when Shukaku was extracted from his body. Only the sacrificial technique of the elder Chiyo, who gave her own life to resurrect him, saved Gaara from permanent death. One by one, Akatsuki captured and killed the other Jinchuriki. Yugito Ni with her 2 tails, Yagura with his 3 tails, Roshi with his 4 tails, Han with his 5 tails, Utakata with his 6 tails, and Fu with her 7 tails. Each extraction killed the host, proving that even after a lifetime of being treated as weapons and monsters, the Jinchuriki were still disposable in the eyes of those who sought power. Some Jinchuriki did eventually earn respect and recognition from their villages, despite the persecution. Killer B of the Cloud Village managed to befriend his 8 tails Gyuki, and became known as a hero and icon of his village. Yugito Ni also earned respect before her death. Gaara eventually became the 5th Kazekage at just 15 years old, the youngest Kazekage in history, and worked to reform his village's brutal policies. And Naruto, after proving himself countless times and saving the entire world during the 4th Shinobi World War, finally achieved his dream of becoming Hokage and earned universal respect. But these success stories could not erase the fundamental cruelty of the Jinchuriki system. Children were chosen before birth or in their earliest years to carry weapons of mass destruction inside their bodies. They were denied normal childhoods, normal relationships, and basic human dignity. Their villages used them as tools, while simultaneously hating them for being those tools. They lived every day, knowing that if their beast escaped control even once, their own people might decide they needed to die. And even if they mastered their beast's power, they faced the constant threat of organizations like Akatsuki, hunting them down to steal that power and kill them in the process. The persecution of Jinchuriki represented one of the darkest aspects of the shinobi system. Villages claimed they needed these living weapons to protect themselves and maintain the balance of power between nations. But the cost was paid entirely by innocent children who never chose their fate and never deserved the hatred directed at them. Naruto and Gaara survived their persecution and eventually thrived, but only after years of suffering that scarred them permanently. Many other Jinchuriki were not so fortunate and died hated and alone, never knowing peace or acceptance. The Jinchuriki were living proof that the shinobi world cycle of hatred affected even the most innocent. Villages created weapons out of children, then hated those children for being weapons, then acted surprised when those weapons became dangerous or unstable. It took the next generation, represented by Naruto's refusal to give in to hatred despite everything done to him, to finally begin breaking this cycle. But the damage done to countless Jinchuriki throughout history could never be undone, and their suffering remained a permanent stain on the shinobi world's conscience. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to the Bloody Mist graduation system and Zabuza's slaughter of an entire academy class in Kirigakure. Among all the hidden villages in the shinobi world, none had a darker or more brutal reputation than Kirigakure, the village hidden in the mist. Over time, this village became known by a name that struck fear into the hearts of people across all nations, the Village of the Bloody Mist. This nickname was not given lightly. It came from practices so cruel and unforgiving that they shocked even hardened warriors from other villages. At the center of these practices was a graduation ritual so brutal that it turned children into killers before they could even become official shinobi. Kirigakure was one of the 5 great shinobi countries, located in the Land of Water. The village was surrounded by thick mist and protected by mountains, making it difficult for outsiders to find. Its society had been divided into a caste system since the village's founding. At the top were families whose lineage originally came from within Kirigakure itself. The second level consisted of families who had allied with Kirigakure on battlefields in the past. At the very bottom, forming the lowest caste, were members of families whose villages had been defeated and conquered by Kirigakure. These conquered people were kept at arm's length from others and forced to take on the most dangerous missions to prevent any thoughts of rebellion. The academy graduation ritual that earned Kirigakure its bloody reputation was particularly cruel to this lowest caste. According to some accounts, the deathmatch graduation requirement only applied to students from these conquered families, though other sources suggest it applied more broadly during certain periods. Regardless of who was forced to participate, the ritual itself was clear and terrifying. Students wishing to graduate from the Kirigakure Academy had to fight their classmates to the death. The entire graduating class would be pitted against each other in battles where only those who survived could advance to the ranks of shinobi. There were no exceptions, no mercy, and no way to avoid the bloodshed. The purpose behind this horrific practice was coldly calculated. The village leadership believed that forcing children to kill their own classmates and friends would eradicate all emotions from them. By making them murder people they had trained alongside for years, Kirigakure hoped to create shinobi who felt nothing, who could kill without hesitation or remorse. The goal was to trade humanity for combat efficiency, creating perfect weapons who would follow any order without the interference of feelings like compassion, friendship, or guilt. In the minds of those who created this system, emotionless killers made the most effective shinobi. Students who entered the academy knew from the beginning what awaited them at the end of their training. They spent years learning together, training together, forming bonds of friendship and camaraderie. They sat next to each other in class, helped each other master techniques, and shared the struggles of learning to become shinobi. But all of this was done with the knowledge that eventually they would be forced to kill each other. The academy teachers deliberately deepened these friendships, knowing that destroying these bonds through forced murder would have the maximum psychological impact. The closer the students were to each other, the more devastating it would be when they had to fight to the death. When graduation day arrived, the atmosphere was filled with dread and terror. The entire graduating class would be assembled, and the death matches would begin. Students fought their classmates, their friends, sometimes even people they considered like family. Those who hesitated died. Those who showed mercy were killed by opponents who had hardened their hearts enough to strike. The ground became soaked with the blood of children who had barely reached their teenage years. Teachers and senior shinobi watched these battles, evaluating which students showed the most promise. Those who excelled in the graduation death matches became prime candidates for the elite group known as the Seven Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist, warriors who wielded legendary blades and were feared throughout the shinobi world. The psychological damage this ritual caused cannot be overstated. Children who survived carried the weight of murdering their friends for the rest of their lives. Some became cold and ruthless, their emotions truly destroyed as the village intended. Others were haunted by what they had done, unable to escape the memories of killing people they had cared about. The ritual created generations of traumatized shinobi who knew nothing but violence and bloodshed from their earliest days. Many of these survivors eventually became missing ninja, fleeing Kirigakure because they could no longer bear the darkness of the village that had forced them to become killers. During the reign of the fourth Mizukage, Yagura Karatachi, this practice continued and may have even intensified. Yagura himself had participated in the deathmatch graduation as a student, which indicated that his family had been among those conquered and annexed into Kirigakure. As Mizukage, Yagura reinforced the village's reputation as the Bloody Mist through various brutal policies. He showed zero tolerance for any dissent or treachery, commending those who killed traitors and ruling through fear and violence. The village became increasingly isolated from the rest of the world during his reign, and its reputation grew darker with each passing year. What many in Kirigakure did not know at the time was that Yagura was not acting of his own free will. Obito Uchiha, operating under the identity of Madara Uchiha, had placed the fourth Mizukage under powerful genjutsu and was controlling him like a puppet. This manipulation began at some point during or after Yagura became Mizukage. Using his control over Yagura, Obito dictated the village's policies from the shadows, stealing money, information, and supplies for use by the criminal organization Akatsuki. The tyrannical practices and extreme isolation of the Bloody Mist era helped cover up these thefts and compensated for the stolen resources. Yagura, despite being the Three Tails Jinchuriki and a powerful shinobi in his own right, was completely unaware that someone else was pulling his strings. Many villagers suspected something was wrong. They believed Yagura was being manipulated by an outside force because his policies seemed so extreme and destructive. A hunter nin named Ao, who possessed a Byakugan eye that he had obtained in battle, eventually discovered the truth. He used the Byakugan to see the genjutsu affecting Yagura and worked to dispel it. However, by the time Yagura was freed from Obito's control, the damage to his body from years of manipulation was too severe. The fourth Mizukage died shortly after being released from the Genjutsu, leaving behind a legacy of tyranny and bloodshed that would haunt Kirigakure for generations. The brutal graduation ritual came to an abrupt and shocking end because of one boy. His name was Zabuza Momochi, and he was only 9 years old when he did something that horrified even the hardened shinobi of the Bloody Mist. Zabuza was not yet a student at the academy himself when he decided to involve himself in a graduation exam. The details of exactly how he gained access to the examination are unclear, but what he did there was unmistakable. Zabuza killed over 100 academy students in a single massacre. He slaughtered an entire year's graduating class, leaving none of them alive. The scale of this massacre was unprecedented. These were trained academy students who had spent years learning combat techniques and how to survive. Yet Zabuza, a 9-year-old child who had not even officially begun his academy training, killed them all single-handedly. He moved through the students like a demon, cutting them down without mercy or hesitation. When the killing finally stopped, the examination grounds were covered with the bodies of children, all killed by someone even younger than they were. The image of Zabuza, standing among the corpses, his hands already soaked in blood at such a young age, became legendary within Kirigakure and beyond. From that day forward, Zabuza earned the moniker Demon of the Hidden Mist. His reputation for cruelty and ruthlessness began with this childhood massacre and only grew over the years. He was cruel, cold, and ambitious even as a child, and the environment of Kirigakure during the Bloody Mist era had shaped him into exactly what the village wanted, a killer without conscience. But the massacre had an unintended consequence. The loss of over 100 potential shinobi in a single day was devastating to the village's future manpower. Kirigakure could not afford to lose entire graduating classes to the whims of one extraordinarily violent child. The village leadership discontinued the deathmatch graduation practice after Zabuza's massacre. The ritual that had defined the Bloody Mist for years suddenly ended, not because anyone in power developed compassion or realized how cruel it was, but simply because it had become too costly. Zabuza had demonstrated that the system could be exploited in ways that damaged the village more than it helped. After his massacre, Kirigakure adopted more standard graduation methods that, while still harsh, did not require students to murder their entire class. Zabuza himself went on to become an Anbu operative, where he killed a Konoha jonin named Kumade Toriichi. Eventually, he joined the prestigious 7 Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist, wielding the massive blade Kubikirabocho. His skills and ruthlessness made him one of the most feared members of this elite group. But Zabuza never truly believed in the Bloody Mist ideology. He disagreed with the 4th Mizukage's policies and believed that shinobi should be the ruling class of the land. This disagreement led him to attempt a coup, trying to assassinate Yagura and take control of the village. The coup failed due to betrayal from one of Zabuza's own team members. He barely escaped Kirigakure with his life and became a missing ninja. Even after fleeing, Zabuza never gave up on his ambitions. He worked as a mercenary, gathering funds with the intention of attempting a second coup. This quest for money eventually led him to work for a criminal named Gato, which brought him into conflict with Team 7 from Konoha. Despite his fearsome reputation and incredible combat skills, Zabuza met his end on a bridge in the Land of Waves, killed not by enemy shinobi, but by the hired thugs of the man he had planned to betray. The Bloody Mist era left deep scars on Kirigakure that lasted for decades. The village produced some of the most powerful and ruthless shinobi in history, including members of the 7 ninja swordsmen like Zabuza and Kisame Hoshigaki. But it also created an atmosphere of fear, paranoia, and instability. The constant violence and forced murder drove many shinobi to become missing ninja, leaving the village weaker rather than stronger. The 7 ninja swordsmen themselves eventually fell apart as members turned against each other or fled the village entirely. By the time of the 4th Shinobi World War, only one of the 7 legendary swords remained in Kirigakure's possession. The political turmoil caused by Yagura's manipulated reign led to an unusually high number of defections. To combat this, Kirigakure established a special division of their Anbu known as Hunter Nin, also called the Corpse Processing Team. These operatives had a single mission: track down missing ninja from the village, and completely erase all traces of them using high-level ninjutsu and medical skills. Hunter Nin would kill defectors, and then destroy their bodies so thoroughly that no evidence of their techniques or abilities could ever be recovered by enemy villages. When the truth about Yagura being controlled finally came to light, it did little to redeem his reputation or heal the damage done to the village. The citizens of Kirigakure continued to despise him for decades after his death. His legacy was so dark that his descendants were mistreated by the villagers, and they eventually stopped using the Karatachi family name entirely to avoid association with him. The very mention of Yagura's name still struck fear among villagers years later because of his connection to the horrors of the Bloody Mist era. Projects he had championed, laws he had enacted, and subordinates who had worked with him were all regarded negatively simply because of their association with his reign. After Yagura's death, Mei Terumi became the 5th Mizukage. She worked tirelessly to reform the village and move it away from its bloody past. She rebuilt damaged infrastructure, completely reworked the academy curriculum to eliminate the cruelty that had defined it, and even granted amnesty to many shinobi who had gone rogue during Yagura's reign. She recognized that many of them had only fled because his extremist policies made staying impossible. Under her leadership, Kirigakure began establishing better diplomatic relations with other villages and working to shed its reputation as the Bloody Mist. Many ninja in the village were actually happy with these changes. They had grown tired of the constant infighting, paranoia, and ruthlessness that had defined their home for so long. The younger generation especially welcomed the opportunity to train and serve without the threat of being forced to kill their friends. Slowly, Kirigakure began to transform from a place of darkness into a more normal shinobi village. The transition was not easy, and there remained a small minority who viewed the peaceful changes as an insult to their pride as ninja, and openly longed for the old days of the Bloody Mist village. By the time Chojuro became the 6th Mizukage, Kirigakure had become a modern, thriving village that bore little resemblance to its brutal past. The thick mist still surrounded it, and it remained one of the 5 great shinobi countries, but the atmosphere had completely changed. Children could graduate from the academy without being forced to murder each other. Shinobi could serve their village without constant fear that questioning orders would lead to execution. The village worked to build alliances rather than inspire terror. But the memory of the Bloody Mist era never truly disappeared. The generation that had survived the deathmatch graduations carried those scars forever. Characters like Zabuza, who had been shaped by that brutal system, demonstrated both the effectiveness and the ultimate emptiness of trying to create emotionless killers. Even Zabuza, who seemed to embody the Bloody Mist ideology perfectly, showed in his final moments that emotions could not be completely destroyed. His tears for his fallen companion, Haku, proved that somewhere beneath all the cruelty and violence, humanity could still survive. The story of Kirigakure's graduation ritual and Zabuza's massacre stands as one of the darkest chapters in shinobi history. It showed how far villages were willing to go in pursuit of power and military strength, treating children as nothing more than raw materials to be forged into weapons. The practice destroyed countless young lives and created generations of traumatized warriors. And for what? The system ultimately weakened Kirigakure rather than strengthened it, driving away skilled shinobi and creating internal chaos that took decades to overcome. The Bloody Mist served as a warning about what happens when a village loses sight of its humanity in pursuit of creating perfect soldiers. Emotions, bonds, and compassion were not weaknesses to be eliminated, but essential parts of what made shinobi truly strong. Villages that understood this, that allowed their shinobi to form genuine connections and fight for people they cared about, ultimately proved more stable and powerful than those that tried to eradicate all feelings. The graduation death matches may have created skilled killers, but they failed to create loyal or stable shinobi who would strengthen their village in the long term. Zabuza Momochi became the symbol of the Bloody Mist era. His childhood massacre ended the graduation ritual, but also demonstrated what that system had created. He was powerful, ruthless, and seemingly without conscience, exactly what Kirigakure had tried to produce. Yet, he was also deeply unhappy, driven by ambitions he could never fulfill, and ultimately died far from home, with only regrets to show for his life. His story was the story of the Bloody Mist itself, effective at creating violence but ultimately self-destructive and hollow. The demon who had killed over 100 children at age 9 proved in the end that the system that created him had failed in its most fundamental goal because it could not eradicate the humanity that persisted even in the darkest hearts. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to Rin Nohara becoming the forced Three Tails vessel and her choice to die by Kakashi's hand to protect Konoha. Rin Nohara was a chunin of Konohagakure and a member of Team Minato, one of the most tragic figures in the entire shinobi world. Her story is not about power or glory, but about a young medical ninja who was transformed into a living weapon against her will and made the ultimate sacrifice to protect everything she loved. Her forced transformation into the Three Tails Jinchuriki and her choice to die by Kakashi's hand would set in motion events that would shape the future of the entire ninja world, leading directly to the Fourth Shinobi World War decades later. Rin spent her childhood playing alongside her best friend Obito Uchiha, often cheering him on when he struggled. She was kind and gentle, always acting as a peacemaker between her teammates. On the day of their entrance into the academy, Rin handed Obito his entrance documents after he arrived late, which left him very thankful. She was also the first to congratulate Kakashi Hatake after he graduated from the academy a year ahead of the rest of his class. After graduating herself a few years later, Rin was placed under the Jonin leadership of Minato Namikaze, alongside Obito and Kakashi, forming Team Minato. She served as the team's medical ninja, showing remarkable skill in medical ninjutsu at a very young age. She displayed great aptitude and was even able to teach her teammates basic first aid. During the Third Shinobi World War, Team Minato was assigned a critical mission to destroy the Kanabi Bridge in Kusagakure. This bridge was a vital supply line for Iwagakure in their war against Konoha. Kakashi, who had recently been promoted to Jonin, was given leadership of the mission, while Minato assisted the war effort elsewhere. During the course of this mission, Rin was kidnapped by Iwa Ninja. Her captors Taiseki and Kako attempted to interrogate her using genjutsu to find out if she knew anything about Konoha's war efforts. However, Rin's will proved too strong, and she did not break even under the genjutsu, refusing to reveal any information about her village. Kakashi and Obito successfully rescued her, but their escape was impeded by a cave-in caused by the Iwa Ninja. Obito's body was crushed by falling boulders, rendering him unable to move. With the right side of his body crushed and no way to free himself, Obito accepted his fate. Before he died, he asked Rin to implant his left Sharingan into Kakashi's damaged left eye socket as an apology for not getting him a present earlier for his promotion to Jonin. Wasting no time given the very grim circumstances, Rin began the procedure immediately. Despite having only basic medical tools and working under extreme pressure, she successfully completed the transplant. After the surgery was finished, Rin and Kakashi were forced to flee when enemy reinforcements arrived and continued the cave-in. Both believed Obito had died in that cave. In reality, Obito had been rescued by White Zetsu under orders from an elderly Madara Uchiha. Madara brought Obito to Mountain's graveyard and tended to his injuries, removing body parts too damaged to be healed and replacing them with limbs cultivated from Hashirama Senju's cells. Although frightened by Madara, Obito felt indebted to him for saving his life and was willing to render assistance. Obito began a long rehabilitation process, eager to recover enough to return to Konoha and help his friends and the village with the still ongoing war. All the while, Madara would tell Obito about the harsh realities of the world and his plan to save it, which the young Uchiha disregarded at the time. Sometime after the events at Kanabi Bridge, Rin was secretly kidnapped again. This kidnapping was orchestrated by Madara Uchiha under the guise of Kirigakure's doing. The plan was deceptively simple and cruel. Kirigakure ninja, manipulated by Madara, kidnapped Rin and forcibly sealed the Three Tails Isobu into her body. Isobu was one of the 9-tailed beasts created by the Sage of Six Paths. During the First Shinobi World War, Hashirama Senju had captured 8-tailed beasts and sold Isobu and Seiken to Kirigakure at the 5 Kage summit as a sign of friendship and to ensure a balance of power among the newly formed villages. Now Kirigakure, under Madara's manipulation, was using Isobu as a weapon against Konoha. Rin was not given a proper Jinchuriki sealing. She was not chosen to be a host like Naruto or Gaara. Instead, she was turned into an unstable vessel as part of a plot to destroy her home village. She was also branded with the Forbidden Individual Curse tag. This cursed seal was placed directly on her heart and by design prevented the branded individual from taking their own life or removing the cursed seal themselves. Rin was programmed so that the tailed beast would be let loose within Konoha once she and Kakashi returned to the village. The plan was for Rin to be rescued by her comrades from Konoha, taken back to the village, and when she crossed Konoha's gates, the seal would break and unleash the three tails to rampage through the village. This strategy was designed to cripple Konoha's military strength and morale while making it appear as a tragic accident rather than a direct attack. But Madara's true goal was far more personal and sinister than simply destroying Konoha. His primary objective was to corrupt Obito Uchiha and turn him into his successor. Madara needed to shatter Obito's will and his will of fire ideology. He knew that the only way to do this was to destroy Obito's greatest source of hope. By orchestrating Rin's death and ensuring Obito would witness it at the hands of their friend Kakashi, Madara created a scenario of ultimate despair designed to push Obito to embrace his Eye of the Moon plan. Kakashi soon rescued Rin, and the rescue itself was suspiciously easy. To ensure the retrieval of the tailed beast, various Jonin and ANBU level Kiri shinobi were sent to chase after them. But this chase was part of the plan. They were meant to drive Rin back toward Konoha while making it seem like a legitimate pursuit. As they fled through the forest with Kiri Ninja in pursuit, Rin began to understand the true reason she had been made a Jinchuriki. She realized she had been turned into a living bomb aimed at the heart of the Leaf Village. The forbidden individual curse tag prevented her from taking her own life through normal means. She could not stab herself or end her own life directly. The curse on her heart made suicide impossible through conventional methods. Being unable to take her own life, Rin asked Kakashi to kill her in order to protect the village. She explained the situation and begged him to end her life before they reached Konoha. Kakashi refused, absolutely. He stated that he had vowed to Obito to protect her by any means necessary. He had promised his dying friend that he would keep Rin safe, and he intended to honor that promise no matter what. Kakashi was determined to find another way to save both Rin and the village. He would not break his oath to Obito. As they continued to flee, the Kiri Ninja kept up their pursuit. Kakashi fought desperately to protect Rin while trying to find a solution, but Rin had already made her decision. She understood that there was no other way to stop the tailed beast from being released in Konoha. She could not remove the seal herself. She could not kill herself due to the curse tag on her heart. If she made it back to the village, countless innocent people would die when the Three Tails was unleashed. The only way to stop the plan was for her to die before reaching Konoha, and the only way to die with the curse tag was for someone else to deliver a fatal blow. During one final confrontation with the pursuing Kiri Ninja, Kakashi activated his Chidori to attack an enemy shinobi. The Chidori was a lightning-fast assassination technique, a concentrated ball of lightning chakra in the palm of his hand. As Kakashi charged forward with the Chidori aimed at a Kiri Ninja, Rin made her choice. She deliberately jumped directly into the path of Kakashi's attack. The Chidori, which was meant to hit the enemy, instead pierced through Rin's chest. She impaled herself on Kakashi's lightning-covered hand. Rin whispered Kakashi's name as the Chidori went through her heart. The boy she had feelings for was now the instrument of her death, but it was by her own choice. She died in front of Kakashi, with a final breath, her sacrifice complete. The impact on Kakashi was immediate and devastating. He was frozen in shock and horror at what had just happened. The girl he had promised Obito he would protect was now dead by his own hand. The remaining enemy ninja who witnessed this were stunned into silence. But Kakashi and Rin were not alone in that moment. Obito Uchiha had also arrived at the scene. During the end of his rehabilitation process, White Zetsu had informed Obito that Kakashi and Rin were elsewhere about to be killed by Kirigakure ninja. Obito was insistent on helping them. Guru, a spiral-faced Zetsu, offered to help by encasing Obito with its body. Before leaving, Obito thanked Madara for all his help but said he would not be returning. Madara made clear his conviction that Obito would return to him. Guru directed Obito to Rin and Kakashi's location. When Obito arrived, he saw Kakashi's Chidori plunging through Rin's heart. He did not see the context. He did not know about the three tails sealed within her. He did not know about the forbidden individual curse tag or the plot to destroy Konoha. All Obito saw was the person he loved most being killed by the friend he had trusted to protect her. To Obito, it looked like the ultimate betrayal. The person he cared about more than anyone else in the world was dead, killed by Kakashi's hand. This moment of unbearable trauma triggered something profound in both of them. Rin's death caused each of their Sharingan to mature into Mangekyo Sharingan. Obito awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan in his right eye, which he had kept when he gave his left eye to Kakashi. Simultaneously, the Sharingan that Obito had given to Kakashi awakened its Mangekyo at the exact same moment. Their Mangekyo design was 3 stretched triangles evenly spaced around the pupil that each curved at the top around the eye to form a circle, making it similar to a pinwheel. Both eyes contained Kamui, a space-time ninjutsu that served as a gateway to another dimensional space. The massive chakra drain from suddenly awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan, combined with the emotional trauma and physical exhaustion, caused Kakashi to pass out immediately. He collapsed unconscious on the ground, unable to process what had just happened. Obito, consumed by rage and grief, did not go to help Kakashi. Instead, enraged by what had happened, Obito used a combination of his newly awakened Mangekyo Sharingan's Kamui and the wood release abilities from Guru's body to go on a rampage. Obito proceeded to viciously and mercilessly slaughter all the enemy ninja in sight. He used wood release cutting technique, creating trees that impaled the Kiri shinobi. While manipulating his new Mangekyo, he seemed almost impossible to beat. His attacks were brutal and efficient. After the last Kiri ninja fell, all of them having been killed by Obito's overwhelming power, Obito disregarded the unconscious Kakashi lying on the ground. Instead, he cradled Rin's lifeless body in his arms, holding her close. Standing over Rin's corpse, Obito vowed to recreate a world where he and Rin could ultimately be together again. The sight of Rin's corpse shattered Obito's idealism completely and drove him to embrace his clan's curse of hatred. He grew to hate reality itself for allowing such a system to permit senseless deaths. Rin's death served as the motivation for Obito to carry out Madara's Eye of the Moon plan, which aimed to create a new world where heroes did not have to stand over graves and make pitiful excuses. Obito even claimed that Rin was the only light in his life. Her death plunged him into darkness. Obito returned to Mountain's graveyard, now willing to do anything for Madara if it could bring him together with Rin again. Madara's plan had succeeded perfectly. By orchestrating Rin's kidnapping, her transformation into a weapon, and ensuring Obito witnessed her death at Kakashi's hands, Madara had broken Obito's spirit and turned him into a willing pawn. Sometime after these events, Madara Uchiha would pass away, but not before passing his plans onto Obito to fulfill until the time of his resurrection. The tragedy of Rin's death had lasting consequences for everyone involved. In the anime, Kakashi developed post-traumatic stress disorder from killing Rin, suffering many nightmares of her death that would persist into adulthood. One nightmare showed the impaled Rin whispering Kakashi's name before angrily yelling it, which awoke Kakashi and left him extremely terrified and guilt-ridden. Since Rin's death, Kakashi would regularly visit her grave to clean her tombstone and leave her flowers. He even shared top-secret information with her, such as Naruto Uzumaki's birth, unaware that Obito was secretly listening nearby. Even on the verge of death himself during Pain's assault on Konoha years later, Kakashi lamented how he failed to protect Rin and said he was going to see her alongside the rest of their team. Rin's death had made her a unique case in the history of tailed beasts. She is the only known Jinchuriki to have died without the tailed beast first being extracted from her body. As such, Isobu became the only known tailed beast to have died and been revived. When a Jinchuriki dies while still containing their tailed beast, the beast dies with them but eventually reforms elsewhere. Eventually, Isobu was revived and recaptured by Kirigakure, who sealed Isobu within Yagura Karatachi, the fourth Mizukage. Unlike Rin's unstable and weaponized sealing, Yagura managed to gain complete control and harmony with Isobu, becoming a perfect Jinchuriki. However, Yagura was later placed under the genjutsu of Obito Uchiha, who controlled the Mizukage and Isobu by extension during his reign of terror over Kirigakure. Years later, during the Fourth Shinobi World War, when Obito was finally confronted about his actions by Naruto and Kakashi, he discovered the full truth. Madara himself revealed his role in Rin's death before Obito was about to die, admitting that he had orchestrated everything and had been manipulating Obito from the very start. This revelation came too late for Obito to undo the damage he had caused, but it contributed to his eventual change of heart. In the afterlife, Rin waited at the entrance to the Pure Land, where she watched over both Kakashi and Obito throughout the years. When Obito finally died during the war, Rin greeted him, teasing him for getting lost in life. Rin Nohara died a loyal shinobi to her village. Despite being kidnapped and made a Jinchuriki in an attempt to wreak chaos on Konoha, she chose to die rather than risk bringing destruction to her home, strongly demonstrating the will of fire that defined her generation of Konoha shinobi. Her sacrifice ensured that the Three Tails could not be used to destroy her village, saving countless lives. However, the tragedy of her death became the catalyst for Obito's transformation into a villain, his eventual control of the Akatsuki, and the Fourth Shinobi World War that would claim thousands of lives decades later. The death of one young medical ninja, orchestrated by Madara Uchiha's manipulation, changed the course of shinobi history forever. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on, we have Sasori's human puppets and the third Kazekage's corpse turned into a permanent weapon. Sasori human puppets and the third Kazekage corpse turned into a weapon forever. Sasori of the Red Sand was one of the most twisted and terrifying members of the Akatsuki, a puppeteer who revolutionized the art of puppet combat by doing something no one had ever done before. He transformed living human beings into weapons that would last forever, preserving their abilities and their bodies as eternal works of art. Among his collection of nearly 300 human puppets, one stood above all the rest as his masterpiece and favorite creation. The corpse of the third Kazekage, the strongest leader in Tsukuyomi's history, was turned into a weapon that Sasori controlled with invisible strings, forcing the dead Kage to fight against his own village decades after his mysterious disappearance. When Sasori was young, his father and mother were killed by Sakumo Hatake in battle, leaving him in the care of his grandmother Chiyo. The loss of his parents at such an early age left Sasori forever plagued with melancholic loneliness and the absence of parental love. When Chiyo attempted to cheer him up by teaching him puppetry at age 5, Sasori's innate aptitude for the art became apparent immediately. He even began to devise masterful ways of eliminating a puppet master's weaknesses in battle, showing genius that went far beyond what was expected of a child. His skills allowed him to create 2 puppets in the image of his parents in an attempt to fill the terrible emptiness he felt inside. He would use these mother and father puppets as substitutes for his real parents, having them embrace him as he desperately sought the affection he had lost. However, the puppets were unable to give him the real parental love that he desired. They were lifeless and empty, incapable of providing the warmth and genuine emotion he craved. When Sasori realized that the puppets could not truly replace what he had lost, something inside him changed forever. He became cold and aloof, developing a general disregard for human life. The terrible loneliness transformed him into someone who valued only things that could last forever, things that would never leave him or decay. He lost interest in the mother and father puppets and eventually abandoned them when he left Tsunagakure. The puppets later fell into Chiyo's possession, and she would modify them for combat use. Sasori created many other puppets during his time in Tsunagakure, including the 3 main puppets that Kankuro would later use: Black Ant, Crow, and Salamander. These were all made before Sasori fled the village. During the Third Shinobi World War, the effectiveness of his puppets in spilling enemies' blood on the sand gave rise to his moniker. He became known as Sasori of the Red Sand because he literally turned the desert red with the blood of his victims. His legacy was such that Kankuro knew of him and feared him despite being born after Sasori had already left the village. But standard puppets were not enough for Sasori. Motivated by his desire to make works that would last forever, Sasori began experimenting to create puppets out of people. He became the developer and only practitioner of the human puppet technique. The process he invented was gruesome and methodical. To make a human puppet, Sasori first removed all of the body's internal organs. He then cleaned the body completely and drained it of all blood. After that, he added an unknown preservative to ensure the body would not decay over time. Finally, he installed various weapons and defensive mechanisms into the corpse, transforming it into a deadly combat tool. The result was something far more powerful than a regular puppet. Human puppets were unique because they retained the use of chakra and any Kekkei Genkai that the human host once possessed during their lifetime. This meant that if Sasori turned someone with a special bloodline ability into a puppet, that puppet could still use those techniques under his control. The ability to preserve and weaponize someone's unique powers made human puppets vastly superior to regular puppets made from wood and metal. According to Chiyo, Sasori was the only person who knew how to create human puppets. The secret of the technique died with him, as he never taught anyone else the full process. Around 20 years before his first appearance in the series, Sasori left Sunagakure to pursue his own interests. He had no loyalty to his village whatsoever. During this time period, he even took the extreme step of converting his own body into a puppet. Aside from his core, Sasori's entire body became a puppet. In place of his intestines was a thick cable coiled around a pole, allowing him to use it as a stinger and retract it if necessary. Attached to his back was a scroll holder containing 4 scrolls that stored extra armament. The first scroll allowed him to expel powerful streams of fire. The second scroll was used to store numerous puppets for his red secret technique performance of 100 puppets. The capabilities of the third and fourth scrolls were not fully revealed in the manga, though in the anime, the fourth scroll was used to fire jets of water with enough force to cut through rock. Installed in the right part of Sasori's chest was a mechanism that could spin numerous chakra threads, allowing him to exceed his previous capabilities and control well over 100 puppets simultaneously. This modification gave him a drastic advantage over other puppeteers. The left part of Sasori's chest held the lone human part of him and the only necessary part of his body capable of controlling chakra. It was a cylinder-shaped device containing his core, the small piece of living flesh that remained of his original body. This core was his only weakness and the source of all his power. As long as the core survived, Sasori could transfer it into another puppet body and continue living. By converting himself into a puppet, Sasori achieved a form of immortality and eternal youth. Although he was 35 years old at the time of his death, he maintained the appearance of a teenage boy exactly as he looked when he first converted himself. Over 10 years before his final battle, Sasori accomplished his greatest feat of puppetry. He kidnapped and killed the third Kazekage, the leader of Sunagakure, who was hailed as the village's strongest Kazekage of his time. The third Kazekage possessed a unique ability called Magnet Release, a Kekkei Genkai that allowed him to manipulate magnetic forces. After studying the Jinchuriki of Shukaku, he had recreated sand manipulating powers by combining his own magnetic chakra with iron powder, producing the iron sand technique. This ability to control iron sand was what led many to believe he was the strongest Kazekage in Sunagakure's history. According to Sasori, the effort involved in capturing and killing the third Kazekage made it his favorite puppet. The third was an immensely powerful shinobi, and defeating him required tremendous effort even for someone of Sasori's skill level. Sunagakure was not aware of what Sasori had done to their leader. The village searched earnestly for the third Kazekage's whereabouts after his disappearance, but with the ongoing war, they were eventually forced to choose a fourth Kazekage. They continued attempting to search for the missing third in later years, but it was not until the start of the fifth Kazekage's reign that his fate finally became known. After converting the third Kazekage into a human puppet, Sasori gained access to all the abilities the Kazekage had possessed while he was alive. Most importantly, the puppet retained the magnet release Kekkei Genkai and could still use iron sand techniques under Sasori's control. This gave Sasori access to an incredibly powerful and versatile weapon. He also installed several additional weapons into the Kazekage's body, all of which were soaked in his special brand of poison. This poison would kill victims after 3 days of painful paralysis. The iron sand itself was also mixed with Sasori's poison, making it even more lethal. Due to the iron sand being derived from the third's ability to convert chakra to magnetism, this also granted Sasori immunity from metallic weapons when using the puppet. The third Kazekage puppet had retractable blades in the formation of a claw on the right arm. The left arm could open up to reveal several summoning seals that summoned thousands of similar arms to attack the target. These arms were capable of crushing an opponent, emitting poisonous gas clouds, and releasing wires that dragged opponents into the gas cloud. If these arms were cut off, a small buzzsaw would take their place. The puppet was sealed in a scroll with the Japanese word for 3 written on it, allowing Sasori to summon it whenever needed. By the time of his final battle against Chiyo and Sakura Haruno, Sasori had accumulated 298 human puppets in his collection. He stated that once he killed Chiyo and Sakura, he would have exactly 300 human puppets. This massive collection represented hundreds of victims that Sasori had murdered and converted over the years. Each puppet retained whatever abilities and Kekkei Genkai they possessed in life, creating an army of diverse and deadly weapons. All of the puppets were equipped with weapons coated in Sasori's special poison, and many had additional modifications and enhancements beyond their original abilities. Sasori's most devastating technique, utilizing his human puppet collection, was the red secret technique performance of 100 puppets. Even the most elite puppeteers could not control more than 10 puppets at a time, using one puppet per finger. Sasori's modifications to his own puppet body allowed him to spin numerous chakra threads from the mechanism in his right chest, letting him control well over 100 puppets simultaneously. This technique was proof of his complete superiority in the puppet technique. The puppets wearing red cloaks would emerge from a summoning scroll, and since they were directly connected to Sasori's core, there was no time lag between his will and the puppet's movements. Sasori stated that he had brought down an entire country with this technique. In the anime, the country was revealed to be the land of this, which was destroyed when the Akatsuki were employed by a neighboring country to wipe it out. While the 100 puppets lacked teamwork, they used sheer attrition and overwhelming numbers to crush their opponents. As their numbers decreased, Sasori could focus more attention on the remaining puppets, making them more dangerous rather than less. All the weapons wielded by these puppets were coated in his poison, ensuring that even a small scratch would prove fatal. When Team Kakashi and Chiyo pursued the Akatsuki to rescue Gaara, Sasori was left to face Sakura Haruno and his grandmother Chiyo, while Deidara fled with Gaara's body. Sasori initially hid within Haruko, a human puppet that served as both armor and weapon. Haruko was his 11th puppet and one of his favorites. In the anime, Haruko was said to have been made from a once famous Tsunagakure shinobi that Sasori converted upon death. The puppet had a long, mechanical scorpion-like tail extending from the mouth of what appeared to be a demon mask on its back, and this tail was laced with Sasori's poison. Haruko's left arm was rigged with a projectile launcher capable of firing poison shrapnel and needles. Once Sakura destroyed Haruko, Sasori emerged and revealed his true appearance. Chiyo and Sakura were shocked to see his youthful face, considering that he had left Tsunagakure over 20 years ago yet still looked like a teenager. Not wasting any time, Sasori brought out his third Kazekage puppet, revealing it to be his favorite since the third was the hardest to kill and add to his collection. He immediately used the puppet's Iron Sand abilities to attack and overwhelm Chiyo and Sakura. Chiyo brought out the mother and father puppets that Sasori had created as a child. Although Chiyo had equipped them with extra weapons and defenses over the years, the third Kazekage puppet's Iron Sand quickly disabled both puppets. The Iron Sand could change into various forms, creating waves of iron particles, elongated spears, and massive geometric constructs. It could fire as pellets strong enough to penetrate solid rock. Even when Chiyo's puppets used chakra shields to block the attacks, the Iron Sand would seep into the joints of the puppets and make them completely immobile and useless. The puppet could create a pyramid of iron sand strong enough to destroy large portions of the ground, and rectangles large enough to slam down and create chunks of rock many times larger than a person. Acting on her own without Chiyo's guidance, Sakura picked up on the third Kazekage puppet's movement patterns. She used herself as bait to lower Sasori's guard, and then demolished the puppet with her monstrous strength, destroying Sasori's favorite creation. With the loss of the Kazekage puppet, Sasori revealed the reason behind his eternal youth by showing his own human puppet body, which was fitted with numerous weapons and traps laced with poison. Sakura managed to break apart his puppet body but missed his core, allowing him to reassemble himself. Chiyo then brought out her white secret technique, the Chikamatsu collection of 10 puppets, to level the playing field. In response, Sasori used his red secret technique, performance of 100 puppets, summoning 10 times as many puppets as Chiyo controlled. Since Chiyo's puppets were designed to work together as a team, while Sasori's puppets lacked coordination, her puppets initially fared better than his despite being outnumbered. However, they were eventually overwhelmed by sheer numbers as Sasori's 100 puppets pressed the attack relentlessly. During the battle, Chiyo attempted to seal Sasori's chakra with a special orb from one of her puppets, but missed his core and only trapped his puppet body. Sasori revealed that he had transferred his core into another puppet body before the seal hit him. Using this new body, he attempted a sneak attack on Chiyo, but Sakura threw herself in front of the blade to protect her. Sasori's poisoned katana pierced through Sakura's abdomen, and he stated that she would either succumb to the poison or bleed to death. As Sasori prepared to finish them off, Chiyo used this moment to strike with the mother and father puppets. She drove both puppets forward and stabbed Sasori through his core in the form of an embrace. As Sasori died in the loving grasp of his parent puppets, something remarkable happened. When Sasori died, Chiyo implied that Sasori could have avoided her last attack, but for some reason chose not to dodge. It appeared that Sasori deliberately allowed himself to be killed, choosing to die in the embrace of the puppets modeled after his parents. Despite his claims of having no emotions and no heart, despite turning himself into a puppet to achieve eternal beauty, Sasori still retained some humanity deep inside. The moment of hesitation that cost him his life proved that something human remained within him, even after all his modifications and all his years as a cold-blooded killer. Before dying, Sasori rewarded Sakura for defeating him by telling her about a spy he had within Orochimaru's ranks. He informed her to meet the spy at the Tenchi Bridge in 10 days at noon. This information would later prove crucial in the hunt for Orochimaru. As Sasori drew his last breath, surrounded by the puppets of his parents, his philosophy of eternal beauty came to an ironic end. He had sought to create art that would last forever, to preserve beauty for all eternity through his puppets. Yet in the end, it was not his eternal puppet body that mattered, but the human core that still beat with feeling, the small piece of himself that remembered love and longed for the embrace of his mother and father. Before we move on, make sure to subscribe if you're enjoying this breakdown. Moving on to the infinite tsukuyomi and a world trapped in illusion to nourish the god tree. Infinite tsukuyomi and a world trapped in dream to feed the god tree. The infinite tsukuyomi is the most powerful genjutsu that has ever existed in the shinobi world. It is an extremely powerful illusion technique that traps the entire world in an eternal dream, enslaving the human and animal populations so that their chakra may be drawn upon by the god tree. This terrifying jutsu was presented by Madara Uchiha and Obito Uchiha as the ultimate solution to bring world peace by allowing everyone to live in a perfect dream where their deepest desires would be fulfilled. However, the true purpose of the infinite tsukuyomi was far more sinister than anyone realized. It was a trap designed to harvest the collective chakra of all humanity, to produce a new chakra fruit and ultimately revive Kaguya Otsutsuki, the original wielder of chakra on Earth. The god tree is a type of gigantic tree which grows by absorbing blood soaked into the ground from countless battles over thousands of years. God trees are born from the 10 tails itself, which acts as the tree's seedling. In order for the seedling to blossom into the full tree, it must be fed the life of an Otsutsuki clan member. The healthier and stronger the sacrifice is, the more powerful the chakra fruit it produces. Due to its massive size and the conditions under which it is grown, humans used to worship the god tree as a sacred pillar that extended into the heavens and remained neutral to all conflict. However, the tree was slowly killing the earth by draining the natural chakra in the soil, rocks, water, and air. Over 1,000 years before the main story of Naruto, Kaguya Otsutsuki came to Earth and ate the fruit of the god tree. By consuming this chakra fruit, she gained incredible power and became the first person to wield chakra. However, when her twin sons, Hagoromo and Hamura, were born with chakra of their own, Kaguya became obsessed with taking that chakra back. As a measure to keep the peace and to reclaim the scattered chakra, Kaguya enslaved parts of the human population with the infinite tsukuyomi and bound those affected to the god tree. The tree assimilated them with its life force and gradually turned them into white zetsu by draining them of everything that gave them their individuality, even their physical appearance. When Kaguya's sons challenged her to stop her tyranny, she merged with the Earth's god tree in order to take their chakra back, thus becoming a monster called the 10 Tails. The plan to use the infinite tsukuyomi in the modern era began with manipulations that spanned centuries. Black Zetsu was created by Kaguya shortly before she was sealed as the 10 Tails by Hagoromo and Hamura. Black Zetsu was the physical manifestation of Kaguya's will, and its only purpose was to secure its creator's revival. It secretly instigated many events that shaped the shinobi world over hundreds of years. Black Zetsu approached and manipulated Indra, the elder son of Hagoromo, tempting him to go to war with his younger brother Asura when Hagoromo named Asura as the new leader of Ninshu. Black Zetsu decided that Indra's descendants, the Uchiha clan, would be the main actors in the plan it was creating. The most important part of Black Zetsu's plan was altering the stone tablet that Hagoromo Otsutsuki had left behind. Hagoromo created this tablet as a guide to preserve harmony within the Uchiha clan and to warn future generations about the dangers of the infinite tsukuyomi and the God Tree. The tablet could only be read by those with progressively advanced forms of the Sharingan, with the full contents requiring the Rinnegan to decipher. Sometime after Hagoromo's death, Black Zetsu forged certain details on the tablet as part of its plan to revive Kaguya. Instead of warnings about the infinite tsukuyomi being dangerous, Black Zetsu rewrote the tablet to state that the infinite tsukuyomi was the salvation for the Uchiha clan and the key to world peace. This falsified information would eventually be discovered by Madara Uchiha. Madara Uchiha was the first member of the Uchiha clan to awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan and read significant portions of the tablet. He was completely unaware that the message had been altered over the centuries. Instead of reading Hagoromo's original guide toward peace and prosperity, Madara read Black Zetsu's corrupted version that presented the infinite tsukuyomi as the only way to establish true peace in the shinobi world. A message of hope and compassion had been twisted into instructions to destroy the world, all for the sake of Kaguya's revival. Madara's interpretation of the tablet caused a rift between him and Hashirama Senju over the future of the Leaf Village, leading to their battle at the Valley of the End, where Madara was defeated. Madara survived his battle with Hashirama and went into hiding for the remainder of his natural life. During this time, he implanted Hashirama's cells into himself and eventually awakened the Rinnegan, allowing him to read the complete contents of the altered tablet. He summoned the demonic statue of the Outer Path, which was actually the husk of the Ten Tails, and began planning for his eventual return. Before his natural death, Madara believed he had created Black Zetsu by imbuing his will into half of White Zetsu. In reality, Black Zetsu had simply hidden inside Madara's body and emerged after his death, making Madara believe the entity was his creation and loyal servant. This deception allowed Black Zetsu to continue manipulating events while appearing to work for Madara's interests. Madara found his opportunity to continue his plan when he discovered Obito Uchiha, who was partially crushed by a boulder during the Third Shinobi World War. Madara saved Obito's life and slowly indoctrinated him into following what became known as the Eye of the Moon plan. Through repeated manipulations that led to the death of Rin Nohara, Obito fell from grace and agreed to carry out the plan. Once Madara was confident in Obito's loyalty, he removed himself from the demonic statue and entrusted everything to Obito, leaving Black Zetsu to guide him until Madara's eventual revival. The Eye of the Moon plan required several steps to succeed. First, the Rinnegan was needed to summon the demonic statue of the Outer Path. The statue then needed to absorb the chakra of all 9-tailed beasts to resurrect the Ten Tails. Once the Ten Tails was successfully revived, the user would need to become its Jinchuriki. By becoming the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, the user could manifest a Rinne Sharingan, a powerful eye that combines the abilities of both the Sharingan and the Rinnegan. The Rinne Sharingan would then be reflected off the moon to cast the infinite tsukuyomi across the entire world. To accomplish these goals, Obito created the Akatsuki organization and manipulated its members into capturing all the tailed beasts. Most members of the Akatsuki believed they were working to create weapons of mass destruction that would end war through fear. They had no idea that their true purpose was to facilitate the casting of the infinite tsukuyomi. Over many years, the Akatsuki succeeded in capturing 7 of the 9-tailed beasts. When Obito's identity was revealed and he declared the Fourth Shinobi World War at the 5 Kage Summit in the Land of Iron, the Shinobi world finally learned the true scope of the plan. During the Fourth Shinobi World War, Obito and a resurrected Madara were able to capture the remaining tailed beasts and resurrect the Ten Tails. Obito became the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, and because he lacked dual Rinnegan, he created a tree form of the Ten Tails. The God Tree grew from the Ten Tails seedling, and a flower bloomed at its top containing a Rinne Sharingan. This flower would be used to reflect off the moon and cast the infinite tsukuyomi. However, before Obito could complete the technique, he was convinced by Naruto and Kakashi that his actions were wrong. Obito defied Madara's control and even briefly became an ally to the shinobi forces. Black Zetsu then forced Obito to use the Rinne Rebirth technique to restore Madara to life, leaving Obito greatly weakened and near death. Madara, now properly alive again, retrieved his Rinnegan and sealed all 9-tailed beasts into the demonic statue. The Ten Tails was reborn once more, and Madara became its Jinchuriki. Despite the efforts of Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha, who had been empowered by Hagoromo himself, Madara successfully awakened a third eye on his forehead. This was the Rinne Sharingan, the same type of eye that Kaguya had possessed. Madara flew into the sky and reflected his Rinne Sharingan off the surface of the moon. Once cast, the penetrating light of the infinite tsukuyomi shone across the world, bright enough to dispel the night for as long as it remained active. All those who fell under its gaze were immediately trapped in the genjutsu, with the Rinnegan's circular design appearing in their eyes to represent its influence. The light reached everyone across the planet, even those who were indoors. The only people who avoided the infinite tsukuyomi were those protected by Sasuke's Susanoo, the dead who had been resurrected through impure world reincarnation, and those coated by Black Zetsu's body. Those under the influence of the infinite tsukuyomi experienced dream worlds where their deepest desires were fulfilled. Hinata Hyuga found herself in a strong and happy relationship with Naruto Uzumaki, with Neji Hyuga alive and watching over her from afar with Hanabi. Kiba Inuzuka became the Hokage and used his position to declare a national holiday for dogs. Shino Aburame discovered and tamed a giant new insect species to ride. Choji Akimichi found himself with a wife who fed him and loved him for his appetite. Shikamaru Nara and Temari decided to never get married, while Asuma Sarutobi and Shikaku Nara were alive and enjoying their families. Each victim lived out their perfect fantasy, completely unaware that they were trapped in an illusion. However, the dream was only the beginning of the horror. Victims of the infinite tsukuyomi were rendered completely immobile, so long as they remained under its effects. Madara then used the technique called God Nativity of a World of Trees, which manipulated the roots of the God Tree to spread around the entire world. The roots wrapped around every person caught in the infinite tsukuyomi, encasing them in bark similar to cocoons. By ensnaring all living beings and connecting them to the tree, this kept their now slumbering bodies alive so long as they remained attached. At the same time, the tree began sapping their chakra. The God Tree's roots possess the capability to extend and ensnare anyone, including even tailed beasts, to drain their chakra. The process could rapidly transform humans into mummified remains within moments if done directly, but the infinite tsukuyomi version was designed to be gradual. Over the course of years, humans connected to the tree in this manner would be drained of their life energy, personalities, and defining features. They would be reduced to shells of their former selves, losing everything that made them individuals. Their memories would fade, their personalities would disappear, and even their physical appearance would change. Ultimately, they would be completely converted into white Zetsu, mindless creatures that could be used as an army. The white Zetsu that existed in the modern era were actually victims of Kaguya's original infinite tsukuyomi from over 1,000 years ago. These transformed humans had been stored within the demonic statue of the Outer Path all this time. When Madara summoned the statue and cultivated Hashirama Senju's DNA into a large flowering tree, Black Zetsu removed White Zetsu and other victims from inside the husk. Black Zetsu led Madara to believe they were artificial humans created by the statue's chakra and Hashirama's DNA, but they were actually the victims of Kaguya's ancient genjutsu. These White Zetsu retained some basic functions and abilities, but had lost everything that made them human. At the same time that victims were being drained and converted into White Zetsu, the God Tree was using their stolen chakra for another purpose. If all of the chakra in the world is united with the God Tree once more, it would be able to bear a new chakra fruit. This fruit would contain the combined chakra of every living being on the planet, granting extraordinary power to anyone who ate it. This was the true purpose behind the infinite tsukuyomi. It was never about world peace or allowing people to live in their perfect dreams. It was a harvesting mechanism designed to gather all of Earth's chakra in one place so that it could be consumed. The user of the infinite tsukuyomi could also draw upon the chakra of those bound to the tree directly. The collected chakra could erupt from the ground and enter the user's body, providing them with tremendous power. This was demonstrated when Madara's body began to rapidly absorb the chakra of everyone connected to the tree. However, this was exactly what Black Zetsu had been waiting for. As Madara absorbed the networked chakra, Black Zetsu suddenly stabbed him through the chest. It revealed that it was not Madara's creation at all, but rather the manifestation of Kaguya's will. Black Zetsu forced Madara to continue absorbing all the chakra from the victims of the infinite tsukuyomi. The massive influx of chakra combined with Madara's status as the Ten Tails Jinchuriki created the perfect conditions for Kaguya's revival. Black Zetsu merged with Madara and used the absorbed chakra to transform his body. Madara's form twisted and changed, causing him great pain as he was converted into Princess Kaguya Otsutsuki, the original incarnation of the Ten Tails and true progenitor of all chakra on Earth. After more than 1,000 years of being sealed away, Kaguya had finally returned to the world. Kaguya immediately began working to complete the transformation of humanity into White Zetsu. She needed to convert the human population that had been bound by the infinite tsukuyomi into her own personal army. This army would serve her in her conflict against other members of the Otsutsuki clan, who would eventually come to Earth seeking the chakra fruit. However, before she could complete this process, she needed to eliminate the last remaining opposition. Team 7, consisting of Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and Kakashi, along with Obito, were the only ones still free from the infinite Tsukuyomi's influence. A prolonged battle followed in which Kaguya attempted to reclaim what she believed was rightfully her chakra. She used her ability to shift between dimensions and wielded tremendous power, but Naruto and Sasuke had been given special abilities by Hagoromo, specifically to defeat her. During the battle, Obito was killed while defending Kakashi from one of Kaguya's attacks. Eventually, Naruto and Sasuke successfully sealed Kaguya using a technique taught to them by Hagoromo. They removed the tailed beast from her body and confined her to another dimension, ending her threat once and for all. With Kaguya sealed away, the only way to free everyone from the infinite Tsukuyomi was through a specific technique. A Rinnegan user had to form the rat hand seal while channeling the chakra of all 9-tailed beasts. Since Sasuke possessed the Rinnegan and Naruto had befriended all the tailed beasts and could channel their chakra, the two of them were able to work together to release the technique. They formed the rat hand seal together, and the infinite Tsukuyomi was finally dispelled. Once the infinite Tsukuyomi was cancelled, the branches of the god tree withered away, along with any white Zetsu that had been created. The people who had been entrapped in the cocoons were freed and awakened from their dreams. Because the technique had only been active for a short time, none of the victims had been converted into white Zetsu yet. They were all alive and well, though they remembered the dreams they had experienced. The shinobi world had come within moments of being permanently enslaved in an illusion that would have slowly drained away their lives, their personalities, and their very humanity to feed an ancient tree and revive a goddess who saw all of them as nothing more than sources of chakra to be harvested. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe and I'll see you in the next video.